Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, special New York Comic Con, Raging Report Part 2, 2009. I'm Sean Wayman, Dr. Norge in the Comics Forums, and I'm joined as always by co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin. Jim and I are reporting live from the New York Comic Con, and this is the second of a multi-part segment taking a look at the New York Comic Con and some of the wonderful events there. On this episode, for sure, is going to be the DC Universe and DC Nation panels. We're going to be chatting about those. We have kind of a off-the-cuff, wonderful conversation that we have with listener JD74. I wish we could have done more of these. For those of you that stopped by the table at the con, you saw that we were recording all weekend. I really regret that we didn't have a chance to do more of these with some of our listeners. We got a few more of them that we're going to be throwing on the show, but definitely if you were at the con, I'm hoping at some point in time we can get you on via Skype or via voicemails or something to further chat with you, because that was one of the highlights of the con for me, was also these moments with listeners. We've got a wonderful interview with the creators of the DC MMO to give us up to date on where they're at right now. The game is just in the alpha stages. Jim and I are both MMO fans. We've been really excited about this game. You heard us talk about it on the show. We got to play it on the con floor. I had an absolute blast playing this. I'm excited for this because whether you're a PC player or a PlayStation 3 player, this game, I picked it up and I was playing it and just having a blast right from the get-go. And it's, in alpha stages. This is a very early development of the game, but the thing that struck me right away was how fun it was, and I'm hoping that comes across in the interview because it was a great time. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up Battle for the Cowl, Arkham #1, written by David Hine, art by Jeremy Hahn, cover by Ladron. Gotham City has become a place of nightmares and madness. At its poisoned heart lies Arkham Asylum. For decades, lunacy has been kept under control by Batman and contained within the walls of Arkham. But with Batman gone, what happens once the walls come tumbling down? In this one-shot, will the asylum's administrator, Dr. Jeremiah Arkham, fall prey to the madness that has plagued so many of his inmates? Or will he seize this opportunity to usher in a new era for Gotham's most haunted institution? Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. Oracle, number 2 of 3, written by Kevin Van Hook, art by Don Kramer and Jay Leiston, cover by Guillaume March. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. This is the mini-series that I think any Oracle fan that's wondering what is going to happen with her, I'm guessing we're going to find out in this one. I'm very curious. Oracle is a character, Barbara Gordon, just in general, is a character that is very important to me. So this is a book that I'm clearly going to be watching because I want to know what's going to happen to this character post-Final Crisis, post-Battle for the Cowl. Where is she going to end up? So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this book keeps me hooked into that character, because she's been so important to me my entire life, from when she was Batgirl to what happened to her in Killing Joke, straight on through to Birds of Prey, and now this miniseries is one that I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. So keep an eye on Oracle. Whatever your shipping preferences, your bag and boarding preferences, DCBService.com remains your pre-order shopping service. For longtime listeners, you've heard us talk about Love and Capes by Tom Zahler. Tom Zahler released this initially as a comic, but then produced it as a web comic as a way to promote the book. And he made it available to websites where you could embed it right into your website. And early on in our show's history, back when we needed content for our website, this is something, because I've been a big fan of Tom Zahler's work, something I put right away on the website, and it's become kind of a part of the show for anybody who has been a long-time listener, like I said. It's written by Tom Zahler, art by Tom Zahler. It's a very fun series with a lot of its roots in, it's kind of a DC lore kind of book. It ties into a lot of the themes, I should say, that are explored in DC. It's not by DC, but it is being collected by IDW. Regularly $19.99, 30% off, only $13.99. Tom's on this episode at the end. It's one of those segments that I mentioned, and this is really an important book to me. He's a local guy for us. He's right around the corner, but he's definitely an intense talent, and I really enjoy his work, from Raider to Love and Capes, and you'll hear on this segment, hopefully, a lot of my love for Tom's work. So I really wanted to give him a shout-out on this episode, and this book a shout-out. If you like the segment, definitely go to InStockTrades.com, pick it up. You can't beat the 30% off discount. You get that for $13.99. So if you enjoy the segment, please support Tom's work. InStockTrades.com remains your collected edition source. Go check it out. And remember, shipping is free for orders over $50, which is very easy to do with those discounts. So check it out and see if you find some things that you need. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast, especially in this episode because we are dealing with stuff from the panels and releases in the panels. Some of it's speculation, but there are some spoilers that came out. So be warned, be cautious, because there's going to be a lot of different topics that we're going to go through as we're going through the panel that suddenly, bam, a spoiler will pop up. So you've been warned, please be cautious. We don't want to ruin anything for you.
Yeah. I will say that on this episode, one thing you're going to want to watch out for are recent events with Superman, recent events with Batman, specifically anything relating to Final Crisis through number 7. These were talked about at the panels. Adventure Comics number 0, Final Crisis Legion of the Superheroes number 3. Are
big time spoilers there.
Yeah. So if you haven't read those right now, you're going to want to come back and join us for this episode after you've read those particular books, because I don't want to spoil those events for you. We're here with Jared Carr and Wes Yanagi from Sony Online Entertainment to talk about the DC Universe MMO. You guys have heard us talking about this like crazy on the show because we're really excited about the game. And I want to thank you guys for taking some time out. I'm sure this is a busy con, but to come over and chat with us about this game, because I got to play it on Friday and yesterday morning, and the game is breathtaking right now. I know it's not even done yet, and the game is really fun to play in its current stage.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We're really excited to show everybody at Comic-Con, where we are so far. We're like I said, we're still pre-alpha, so we still have a long way to go. We don't have a ship date set yet, but we're really excited to bring it in front of everybody.
Yesterday I had the opportunity to do the flying mechanics on the game, picking up vehicles, I was fighting villains. Everything was real intuitive. I was using the PlayStation controller, which I'm used to playing MMOs on the computer keyboard. So I really wanted to, when I went over there, let me see what this is like on a controller. And it was so easy to pick everything up and use the buttons to be able to... I was doing things without even reading anything or any kind of manual. Instantly I was up and flying. I landed on Superman's shoulder in Metropolis in the park, which was, a geek out moment for a comic fan to be able to actually fly into the park. I saw the statue from a distance, and I'm like, I want to see if I can get there. But I was able to do that right away, which for me, that intuitive pick up and play gameplay, it was really a welcome surprise.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the visions for this game is that we want to kind of deliver on that superhero fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. And to do that, we couldn't just take one of our existing engines like EverQuest or EverQuest 2, put people in spandex and a cape and have that work out. We really want to have that, visceral action, that physics-based combat, and really make things a lot more fast-paced.
Well, and it's a game that's meant to be played by a more casual gamer, an action fan, someone who's used to console games. And so this is not an MMO where combat moves are decided by dice rolls or something like that. It's more of a player skill-based combat game.
Like City of Heroes, which is out there right now, and things like that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot with that. But I've been playing that for a long time. One of the things I really liked about this was the action aspect of it. Well, how did you approach taking a look at not just City of Heroes, but any other MMO out there? You mentioned EverQuest and games like that. You're going more of an action-based scheme. What is going to keep players coming back every day to play, every hour to play? What are they going to do to want to check into this game? How is there going to be like level progression in the game? What is that going to look like?
Yeah, we still have the MMO aspects of the game, right?
Okay.
We still have progression, we still have loot, we still have traits that you can improve, new powers that you can build your character, and all that persists. So all that MMO goodness is going to be in here.
Awesome. But it's easy to pick up and play for new people who've never played it before. Sorry.
Sure. Well, and I would add to that by saying that this is DC Universe, and so we have lots and lots and lots of DC characters. Anyone who's familiar with DC knows that there are hundreds of characters, stories that have been told for decades. It's a really rich fictional backdrop for an MMO, so I'm sure by now everyone knows that our head writer is Jeff Johns. He's writing our major story arcs. There's going to be a lot of stuff to keep people in the game for a long time.
Just the concept art pictures that I've seen already have been breathtaking. I know Newsarama had a Lex Luthor, a full 360 model of him in the armored suit that you could see. And the amount of tiny details on that character. But to be able to see him fleshed out in 3D, visibly like that, was really fantastic. When I was playing the game yesterday, a guy was standing behind me just watching and enjoying watching. And one of the things he said, I've had dreams like this. And he said I could literally, because I flew on top of Star Labs. which is an iconic building in the DC universe. In the game, one of the aspects of the DC world is the fact that there are heroes and there are villains. Can you choose to be a villain? Can you choose to be like Batman or Superman's adversary? Obviously, that would add to a player versus player element within the game as well, where if you're a villain and there's other people that are heroes, is there going to be a player versus player aspect in the game?
Yeah, well, currently, the demo that you played this weekend, we're online with both heroes and villains, PvP and PvE. And so actually the scenario is somewhere in the city, Doomsday and Superman are fighting each other, and if you choose to be a hero, your job is to go support Superman. If you choose to be a villain, you're actually helping Lex with his scheme. And alongside of you, there's Star Labs, Defense Team characters, there's LexCorp Shock Troopers.
That's great because you're not just going to, you're not going to be Superman, you're not going to be Batman, you're going to be able to hang with Superman and Batman. You're going to be able to help them and assist them or thwart them,
exactly.
depending on your choices.
That's really kind of the whole focus of the game is that they're kind of the yardstick that you measure yourself by, and what would be really cool is eventually, imagine getting invited into the JLA by Batman or getting invited into the Legion of Doom by Lex Luthor.
And that kind of interactivity is something that I really look forward to because we all want to be a part of comic book. I think that's true of any escapist fiction. You all want to be drawn in and be a part of it, but now we get to live it.
I got to do a little, I was playing the villain side, which I kind of like that, being able to jump in and start off as a villain, not wait for that. I was doing pretty good against the AI engine, but once a player hero came in, they completely destroyed me. And I just love that player versus player action that I was going through out of nowhere. I'm beating up some guys going, yeah, I'm pretty tough. Next thing I know, bam, 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 I'm getting destroyed in there.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's the cool thing about having heroes and villains in this game and how we can have a really, really rich PvP focus. We will have servers that will be just PvE only for folks that really don't like PvP. But, the heroes and villain aspect just really lends itself to that. And, having an open world hero and villains combat is just a really great thing.
One of the things I liked about it is I love MMOs, but I have a love-hate relationship with them in the sense that a lot of times you get stuck on the crawl, where it feels like it takes, forever to make any form of progression, and it feels like that's all you're doing. I know just from this alpha, it was fun. It was just plain fun. It was funny at that point in time, and I knew that it was, at that stage of development, but I really could have probably spent hours just sitting there playing around. And I didn't really care, at that point in time, I didn't really care if I was making progress or not. It was just fun to do that. But the person from your booth that was standing there told me that as I progress in level, my character's flight ability, my character's ability to fight are going to increase. So my character was flying at a nice pace, but she said as the game goes on, your character's going to get faster, and that skill set's going to grow. And that got me excited because I'm like, wow, I'm really already enjoying this, but then to be able to feel later on like I'm a veteran, I can fly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the case of, say, like a super speedster, right? Mm-hmm. You might just start out with basic super speed, but as you progress and level up, you might get an ability to intercept a flyer, right? Create a little tornado around you and then kind of zip right up to him so you can beat him up, kind of like the Flash, and then kind of go back down to the ground.
But what's important is that we want players, as soon as they launch the game and jump in, that they have abilities and that they feel like a superhero immediately.
We kind of call it like starting at level 11, right?
Which is great, but I like that aspect too because that's how you avoid the crawl, that there's a reward of I've got these powers now, but look what I'm going to be able to do. And to keep growing and be able to do that. I want to talk about the character creation engine because the character I was playing was a very detailed character. It was a female character. She had this headgear on. She had a staff. Knowing the stage this game is at right now, just to see the unique nature and customization of the character already. Because it was somebody that clearly looked like, it didn't look like anybody that was in a comic book right now. As a fan, if you're going to jump into the game, I get into the aspect of I want to create my own hero. And I want to have I want to, when people see me running down the street in the game, I want friends of mine who maybe just popped online to be able to visually know it's me.
Yeah.
From the customization and design. Can you talk about at all where you guys are heading with the customization engine?
So what we're showing this weekend, and there will be screenshots and videos released online showing these characters. These are kind of sample characters that we've worked with my character team and Jim Lee to design some themes, throw some ideas out there. What are the various themes that we might want to be able to create? That particular character, more of an Atlantean goddess. type of character. We have some kind of demon themes, angel themes. We have magic themes. We have metahuman themes. And then from there, we're even looking at a range of Golden Age designs all the way up to contemporary designs. So what you're seeing in this demo is a little bit more contemporary, but all this stuff is actually, or a lot of it is designed by Jim Lee. So that particular character that you played was actually a Jim Lee design. So Jim drew that out, our guys built the pieces and put it in the game. So also with that, when you jump in, you do have an itemization and kind of looting system. So as you progress, you will be able to find more pieces for your costume, upgrade your costume, maybe change your silhouette, if you so choose. One of the aspects of superheroes is that they don't, they pretty much look the same.
Right, oh yeah.
There are cases where Superman's costume changes here and there, but 99% of the time, Superman is Superman.
Right. You're talking about slight tweaks, but it's typically, you're right. There's a reason why he's iconic, and it's because visually you know where he is right away. And that was one of the aspects I liked about the character that I saw. I was like, wow, it's a very rich character design that is very unique. Visually, from a distance, if I saw her fighting other characters, if that was a friend of mine, I would know that that's my friend down there fighting. I could go jump right into the action, which is a unique thing. You don't have to, I'm looking for this particular person on there. I could see them in front of me and be able to identify them. And that's I thought was an important distinction on the quality of the graphics on this.
Well, you mentioned earlier, like Lex Luthor, that design, player character designs. Everything that we do goes through a concept process where we sit down, we do a lot of drawings, we go back and forth. There are some things we toss out. We want this game to look really, really good. We do have a lot of technical limitations. Bringing an MMO in a seamless open city environment with real-time physics where characters can fly and go anywhere and see anything from any angle. We have a lot of technical limitations, but within that context, we want this to be as good looking as possible. So we put a lot of thought into our designs up front.
One of the questions somebody asked me yesterday, I don't know if this is something you want to answer now, or if you're able to even answer now, are people on the PS3 going to be able to play with people on the PC environment?
Yeah, so I've been actually asked that a lot this weekend. Right now we are actually, that's the way we're doing it in-house with our internal servers. We haven't made any official decisions on that yet.
Right.
So, I can't say definitively one way or another, but, that would be really cool because a lot of people have been saying, my friend has a PC, I have a PS3, we want to play together. My usual answer is, go out and buy a PS3.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll once we figure that out, we'll probably have some sort of announcement in the future.
One of the concerns with that is we don't want PC players to have an unfair advantage over console players.
So
with
make sure that they've got a balance.
So it does need to be balanced, and we'll find that out through play testing.
Okay. Yeah, and you're right. You don't want to ruin the gameplay experience where PS3 users feel like, wow, I'm not getting the same experience as, or vice versa. If it turns out the other way around, that it just works better, on the controller for those particular people. So that's kind of a tricky balance. That's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's an interesting thing that I think we as players don't think about. We're like, well, we just want to play together. But if there is something that would ruin the game experience over there, that does have to take a priority. Because for me, it's always about the gameplay. I guess that's why when you guys came over, I was geeking out so much at this game because even at this stage, it's fun. Whereas I played MMOs before, quite frankly, that were daunting. They weren't fun to play. As the level progression went on, you got into the fact that your character got stronger, and that kept me coming back, was, the storyline and all that. There's a small group of MMOs that I've ever played that I actually felt like, wow, I'm really having fun playing the game, manipulating my character and doing that. It was just fun to grab the controller and fly around and attack. And
that's one of the core concepts in the studio and the development team is that we have this kind of this thing that we always kind of try to do is prove through play, right? Everything that we do, we can have a new feature in the game that could be kind of obliquely associated with anything that we have, but we put it in there, we test it out with what we have, and we kind of we do critique each other, sometimes pretty harshly, but basically, once we get that fun factor, then we go, okay, now we know that this is good, and let's move on to the next feature.
Voice chat within the game, is that something that's going to be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a relationship with Vvox through all of SOE, and we're kind of integrating that to all the game in some fashion, so we'll definitely have voice chat.
That's fantastic. I'm kind of a mixed bag when it comes to chatting online with people when I'm playing the game. Sometimes some of the games require so much of my attention on the mechanics that I can't really chat with anybody during that time because I'm so focused on that. This was so easy. I was actually chatting with people that I was standing around with, so I'm like, wow, this is a game that I could really get into having a social experience with, which I think is important with an MMO as we're going forward. You're going to be on there for so many hours, you're going to be building friends, and to be able to actually chat with those friends and develop relationships and keep coming back for more. So I'm glad to see that this game really felt like I could easily see myself being social within this game in a way that I'm not, personally, I'm not usually in those games because I'm so busy focusing on the task at hand or how to do that. And that's not to say that it was it was great on gameplay because of that, but I really was able to so intuitively control it that I didn't have to put my focus there. I was having fun, and I could accomplish tasks, and I could focus on those tasks, and it was really surprising to me at this stage that I was able to do that, because I figured, it'd be kind of cool to kind of look around, but I was expecting, being complimenting you guys, I was expecting a lot more bugs, because I know obviously we're looking at the end of the year, early 2010, at least at the current point. I'm not trying to pin you on a date, but that's what I've read online as far as where it kind of is looking right now, and I was like, wow, this is really a polished experience for where we're at this point. And I appreciated that. So I'm glad to see that the focus was the game engine first and foremost, because that was very clear in the experience I had.
I mean, stability is really important for us because if we can't get our guys on the team playing it every day in a meaningful way, then we don't get anything out of it, right? We can't progress and move the game forward. So on a daily basis, we have bugs. If the build is broken or the game is busted, a lot of people internally are complaining and banging on other people's doors. So that keeps the quality bar pretty high.
If you can't play it, it's very difficult to make decisions about what's fun and what's not fun.
I'm a fighting game fan. It felt like a fighting game to me, which was a unique experience too in an MMO, in the sense that it didn't feel like I was pressing buttons. It felt like I was in a fighting game, like a Mortal Kombat style game or something like that. I was doing combo style moves, and it felt like really easy to do that. So, which, I mean, it's a superhero game.
Yeah.
It's got to feel like that.
Yep, absolutely. That's kind of part of the core vision, is that to deliver on being that superhero, right? Having that superhero fantasy, you have to have combat that's like that.
Was there anything surprising about the development of this game, or maybe challenging or something that kind of stood out to you guys that you were like, you didn't realize was going to happen as you were going through the development of this game? Because of the property or because of the types of characters you were doing or anything?
I mean, for me, I think it's just the sheer scope of everything, right? I mean, we have just taking a small cross section and looking at like movement modes. You have flight, you have super speed, you have acrobatics. There have been games that have solely been based on one of those movement modes by itself. And then you have the entire physics behind the game, right? Where we have a full back-end physics simulation system that's taking care of everything in the city and managing all those different objects, like literally thousands and thousands of objects. And just, kind of going, wow, once we started kind of going down that rabbit hole, it was like, that's pretty deep there.
One of the things I noted with the objects, I picked up a car and I was using it on the villains as a weapon. And I liked the aspect that I was getting tired as I was using it, that because of the fact that I was lifting something that was clearly more than my powers would normally, it would let me do it, but that's something that's more than just a normal fisticuffs and things like that. I wore out faster, so I liked that aspect of it. But I also liked the fact that as I was beating down on the car, there was something being left behind from it. You could actually see that which would be a natural thing, and you got to see the wreckage of the car too as well. Those were nice little tiny details. The fact that there was something to be able to pick up afterwards, that there was, that there was actual consequences to destroying something in the environment. You were able to pick up light posts and use them within the game. I like that the physics in there, nothing was like flat. Everything was three-dimensional, able to be used and picked up. Being able to pick up in a superhero world a light post. In the comic books, it's a very common thing to see heroes and villains be able to do that. It was very intuitive to just walk over, a button press, I'm lifting that thing up, I'm using it in battle. There was no frustration at the process. It was very easy to use. What kind of objects are we going to be able to utilize within the game, at least right now? I know you can't tell me everything because you're in the stage of it, but I mean, so far, what have you guys developed that you're able to use?
Again, like you mentioned, part of the superhero fantasy is picking up huge things and using them as weapons and that environment damage. And so the environment is interactable, but we do have to have limits. So what we aren't going to be doing is we aren't going to be, tearing down whole buildings, because in the context of an MMO with thousands of players in there, our creative director likes to remind us is that, within the first 20 minutes, the city of Metropolis would be completely destroyed and it would stay that way. Things like light posts, traffic, cars, hot dog stands, signage, stuff like that can be picked up, used as a weapon, thrown down the street, things like that.
I think one of the funny things is early on we had kind of some vision kind of ideas and statements that we were trying to put together on the game, and one of them that came out was like, yeah, it would be really cool to be able to fly up to the top of the Daily Planet, rip off the globe, and throw it down the street or something like that. And then kind of like thought about it for a while and went, you know what, that globe would never be there. It would be like rolling down Metropolis every single minute of the day. So yeah, that's definitely something that we have to...
And that's something you could say if, down the road, that might be something you can do at a special event or something like that within the game where it makes sense within the context, maybe. I mean, because, as these games develop down the road, content is updated and things like that. So there's always those options later on. Sure. My problem, I was just thinking this is from a gamer standpoint. I was like, yeah, sure, it'd be cool to see a building get knocked down. But here's the other problem. Everybody's jumping into the game at one point. Who wants to see the building being reconstructed in front of them as well instantly? Because that's what you'd have to do in order for people to be able to have that experience. And that, to me, would take me out of the comic book world.
Exactly. It works fine in a single player context, but in a multiplayer context, it
But hot dog stands, light posts, cars, like I never felt at any point in time it was very weird to see another car on the street.
Yeah.
Because cars are things that can be driven back up. A hot dog stand can be pulled back up easily. Those things were things that were very believable in the game world, that they would be reappearing in some capacity quite easily.
Sure.
So I liked that aspect of immersion, that you could play around with those things, but like you said, I don't want to see the Daily Planet building torn down every 5 seconds while I'm playing the game.
I was wondering about secret identities and that type of stuff. Have we started looking into maybe developing that? Is that going to be something we'll be able to actually, as the player, create our own secret identity? And maybe we're walking down the street, we see the bad guys jump in the phone booth, and pop open the fly off and save the day?
So I would really like to talk about secret identities at this point, but unfortunately not. Secret IDs are a really important part of the DC universe. I mean, that's one of the kind of hallmarks of this IP. So that's something that we're really kind of paying attention to. It's really important to us, and we think we have a really cool way to integrate it into the game. But unfortunately, we can't really talk about that right now.
Well, there's probably a lot of things, I'm assuming. I know from what I know of MMO development, there's things that like we've got to get in right now so we can get the game can be out. It's playable. It's an exciting experience right now. But there's always things. It's a growing, persistent online world. That there's things that like we're going to do later. We're going to add on later. That just right now we can't make them a priority, because if we do, we're going to take away from the core gaming experience. Where I'm sure you guys probably have a lot of ideas on the table that you're like, down the road, it'd be really cool to be able to do this, be able to have the game stand out in that way.
There's so many stories and so many locations in the DCU, and paring that down into the product that we want to launch with, it's been a process that we've gone through. We've made some decisions. I don't know if I can talk about exactly what we're going to launch with in terms of environments, but we have talked about Metropolis, we have talked about Gotham. There will be a lot of other locations around the world. Earlier you were talking about going into Centennial Park and landing on the Superman statue, flying around Star Labs. So what we're focusing on is making sure that we are including those iconic locations.
Yeah.
Because that's really important, right? And
it is.
So even with Metropolis, we do, we look at the existing maps, we talk to DC, we get approval on what we're putting into the game, and when we put something on a map, we pass it to them and make sure that, they're happy with that. So it's everything from well-known stuff, Star Labs, Superman statue, to lesser-known stuff like the Kane Street Mall, so that's in there too. Definitely our plan is, we launch a good, well-rounded product, right, to launch, and then we add to it. So, and it's gonna be determined by the writers and the players and what people want to see, and we have a lot of ideas, but we don't know yet exactly what's going to happen.
I could ask you, which we haven't really, we touched on kind of briefly, how important is storyline to the game? Because as comic fans, obviously, we want to be immersed into a big storyline. We touched on Superman, and I'm not asking for specific details because I know you can't reveal that at the moment, but we touched on Superman Doomsday, iconic storyline. We had an opportunity to, in the game here, at this stage in development, to take part in that storyline, to either be on Superman's side or Doomsday's side. And in the iconic story, Justice League heroes and things like that were helping Superman to fight Doomsday at that point. So to be able to be a part of that, or to be a villain on the side of helping, taking advantage of what Doomsday's doing to somehow, further your own agenda is very cool. How important is storyline to the game? If you could speak on that at all, for what you can say.
Yeah, it's absolutely important because, again, part of this is the DC IP, right? And all about comics is these really cool storylines. You think about, when you think about the DC universe, it's not just about, the S symbol on some dude's chest, or, a bat symbol on somebody and some character like that. It's the stories of Doomsday versus Superman, or Doomsday killing Superman, or, any of these other iconic stories in the universe. And so what we want to do is really deliver on that aspect of it, and that's why we're working really closely with Jeff Johns and Mark Wolfman and a bunch of other people. One of the other things that we've been talking about, just in terms of team makeup, we've actually hired an editor that used to work at DC onto the team from DC, with their blessing, of course. But she's basically responsible for making sure that we are staying true to that DC IP, and also helping us kind of work with the editors with the writers, and translating that into the game. We also hired a guy from the local comic book store who's our comic book curator, and basically that guy is just amazing knowledge. He has an amazing amount of knowledge with the comics, DC Comics in general, and any kind of resource or source material that we need, we kind of ask him, and he'll go dig it up. Usually he'll just kind of just tell us off the top of his head what it is, but then he can go and research, find the appropriate comic book, and bring that over to the designer or the artist who needs it.
Are there going to be, as you complete storylines, accolades for completing a certain storyline or anything like that? I don't know if that's something you could even touch on at this moment.
Headlines?
Yeah. Basically, one of the other things one of the other concepts is we have this concept of headlines, and just kind of a super high level is to kind of make your mark in the world as you achieve certain things, right? Because the Daily Planet is really, is basically kind of the ultimate in either if you're a hero or a villain, right, being on the front page, or something like that is something that really would be really cool. And so as you achieve things in the world, we're going to incorporate ways to kind of broadcast your fame or notoriety.
The same way you would see in a regular comic book and all that. Because I want to feel like I'm on the cover of a comic book when
your question is about story, and the story is really your story.
Right.
Your hero's journey, and that's the most important story.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there anything else that you guys want to get out there right now that I haven't asked?
No, I think the main thing is we have a lot of updates, and any kind of assets or videos or blogs or anything like that will be up on our MySpace site on myspace.com/DCUO. So
I already have that on our website, but I will also put that in the show notes. So anybody listening, you don't have to write it down. You can just click on it right from the web links on here on our Comics Podcast Network. So it's real easy to get to and jump right to from this. But I've been enjoying the amount of information you guys have been releasing as far as screenshots and just quick little updates on what you can tell us. And it's been nice to journey along with the development of this game, as opposed to getting an update here and then this really long stretch and we don't know what's going on. Even if it's just a screenshot here and there, that type of stuff. As a fan who's excited for the game and anticipating, I know you guys are incredibly busy, but those little tidbits that you do are appreciated because I'm aware of how busy you are. And when I see those things, I'm like, wow, that's really cool that they're trying to keep us in the loop on where we're going, we're anticipating. And
yeah, and it's good for us too, because getting earlier feedback is better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's really nice to hear from other people and come to shows like this and have people play the game and tell us what they think. So it's helpful.
Well, thank you for coming to the con, because honestly, playing the game here was one of the highlights of the con for me. I was smiling ear to ear over there. I had to come back here because we were doing podcast interviews, and I had to tear myself away from the game because it really was it was a fun playing experience. And I got a PS3, and one of the reasons why I purchased it was for this game.
Wow, that's great.
Because I'm like, I don't want to upgrade my PC. I want to play it in my living room. I want to be able to play it more, because a lot of times the struggle of playing an MMO for me is, I've got a family. To be up in my computer room playing an MMO is really hard to devote that kind of time to it. But now to be able to do it in the living room, where I can be doing it with my wife in the room, and I could even say at some point, hey, You want to play for a little bit? She can take over the character, or she can create her own character and jump in at that point. It takes an MMO and makes it, instead of an isolated experience, a social experience even at home, where you're trading off controllers, trading off characters and things like that. So I really appreciate the fact that you're going PC and console, because I think you're appealing to two different markets. And I think I'm excited for that, to be able to finally be able to devote the time to an MMO that I haven't been able to previously.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you guys very much for your time. I know you're busy this weekend, and we really appreciate it. So, pleasure. Jim, I want to talk about the two DC panels, because it's something we haven't had a chance to really discuss on the show. Actually, we did, but we were falling asleep at a Fridays when we first started talking about the Friday night DC panel, so we decided to re-record it and kind of do both of those DC panels together at one point in time. Your panel was really the one where the news is coming out of, and one I'm really excited to hear some of the news from, because I've only gotten some little tidbits, so I'm really anxious now to what did happen? What is coming out? Because we talked about Superman on the last episode, we talked about Batman on the last episode. What's going on in the DC universe as a whole?
Well, it was kind of neat the way they did it. They broke it down by, they had a wide panel of creators there, and they broke it down by character, by big events. They, of course, started off, with Robinson talking about Superman, and just kind of give a recap of what happened at the at the Superman panel for those who weren't there. And it was kind of neat, just to, if you weren't there, you're brought up to speed, and just the general flow of it. They did go a little bit more in detail, because Sterling Gates was there talking about with Supergirl, and just kind of going through, she's going to have a little bit more of a emotional roller coaster. It's going to be tough on Clark, because this is dealing with New Krypton, and this is, dealing with Earth, and everything that, the weight of the world is on Clark's shoulders. But with Supergirl, you think about it. She's when she was here, she was dreaming about returning back to Krypton. She's dreaming about going back home and going back to her family and everything. And now she's got that opportunity, but it's not exactly how she remembered it. It's not the utopia. It's not the perfect thing. She's going to have some very difficult choices to make that will have massive ramifications.
We've also seen with her that, especially in her own book, when she was faced with that with her father and her mother, she put so much work into making a life for herself here. She's got Linda Lang. She's built, basically gone from being somebody who was fighting against and rebelling against this. Now she's embraced it, and they're back. Well, now she's finding that I put all this work into this. I've kind of, I've matured at this point. I don't necessarily know that I want to go back. She was glad to have them back in her life, but it's more kind of she's the kid that's now a teenager ready to move out of the house.
Yeah,
and she came back home, and that's not always as easy to do as possible.
Yeah, story's definitely going to have that type of feel with just the growing up, the maturing, it's time to move on. But you think about this, though. These are superheroes. These are, you make one little mistake or one little problem, there's going to be huge repercussions to it. So I'm thinking we're going to see Earth itself in jeopardy. And that, my personal opinion, is the big decision she's going to have to choose is not just between living on Earth or living on Krypton. It's between the survival of Earth or the survival of Krypton. That's how I personally see it going down.
Really?
Yeah, and it's part of it is just a gut feeling, but they're saying major decisions, massive repercussions, and they kept throwing out terms like that at both panels. So there's something going to be huge there, and also
and I don't maybe New Krypton as a planet, but not the people.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I don't see. I would be sorely disappointed if Superman let New Krypton just crumble. The people I'm talking about.
Right? Yeah, I know.
So I don't see that being an option for Superman. He would try to find a way to make it all work.
Well,
but I do think you're right in the sense that I think the first choice is going to be, and you're right, there's more to it. I think the first choice is going to be, am I staying on New Krypton or am I staying on Earth? And my opinion is she's staying on Earth.
Oh yeah, big time staying on Earth.
Touching on what you're saying, I agree that there's no way New Krypton can just stay out there the way it is right now. There's got to be some kind of resolution in it. I'm wondering if maybe this might eventually lead to a new bottled city of Kandor.
I don't know. And it's one of the other things they talked about, how with the way Jeff Johns wrote Rebirth. It was, the Rebirth, Sinestro Corps War, Black Knight, Blackest Night. There's these building on one.
Right.
Is the Superman story the same arc? And they said there is going to be a major event in the Superman universe in 2010. So this is building. This is one part of a trilogy of events.
They said it was a 3-year plan.
Right. So there's going to be something big coming down the pipeline that all of this is going to feed into. So who knows what that big thing's going to be? So you're thinking, wow, New Krypton's a big huge event. Yes, it is a big huge event, but there's something more. It's leading and filling into something else.
But I like that. Not only is it reading this event and getting through this event, but it's then there's a payoff in the sense that you follow this, and you're going to be ready for the third event. And everything that's happening here matters, and it means something for the next phase in Superman storytelling. I like that. I'm glad that kind of value. That's what continuity is all about. It's not about, are you connected with what's happening 50 years ago? No, it's about right now. The story that I'm reading at the moment, is it going to connect with the next story? Is it going to connect with the story after that? And there might come a point in time where they start a new story, a new giant arc or something like that, but that those issues should all be interconnected as well. This is continuity. I think this is what people have forgotten about continuity. Green Lantern's so popular right now because of the strong continuity currently in the books.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about to Green Lantern in the Silver Age or 50 years ago. It's right now that if you were reading Rebirth, there were events in Rebirth that have led to the current stages of where we're at in Sinestro Corps War. Sinestro Corps then is leading into Blackest Night. I mean, these are all events that mean into something.
And it was funny because someone asked Jeff that question, like, when did you first start building Blackest Night? When did you first come up with the idea? And he was like, well, if you read number 6, you'll see the initial, you'll see Black Hand talking about it. And when he was creating Rebirth, he was planning Blackest Night.
Wow.
And he was laying the groundwork and the seeds for Blackest Night in Rebirth. So when he took over the Green Lantern story and whatnot, he had this whole story arc, this whole idea in his mindset already. So this is once again just another multiple year build for Jeff Johns, and you're seeing it, and it's the big buzzword in 2009 is Blackest Night, deservingly. So I'm excited, and it was cool because at the panel they talked a little bit more about some of the other lanterns, especially the Orange Lanterns, the Agent Orange miniseries, this one-shot, and each of the lantern colors will get their own one-shot, which explains who they are, kind of like we saw with the Sinestro Corps and with the Rage of the Red Lanterns. Each one, and they're talking about Agent Orange. Orange, I guess, I believe is greed. And it's
Dan DiDio said that in at the DC panel that I was at. Dan DiDio kept taking off different colored shirts. And as he was taking off the different color shirts, they were themed according to the conversation from the audience. So, and he was leading it that way, getting fan reactions to certain events. So he wore Hope first, then he wore Red for Rage. Orange was Greed. When they were talking about comic prices and things like that. And then he swore at one point and was wearing the evil, not on purpose, but it led naturally to him putting, having the yellow shirt on. But then he took that off immediately and went back to willpower with green.
But it's the Orange Lanterns. The Guardians, made a deal with the Vega system, the gambling system, not to have a Green Lantern patrolling in their system. Well, the Orange Lanterns are kind of like an offshoot of that pact that they made. And they wouldn't give us what the oath was, but he just said it is the coolest oath ever. So really looking forward to what the Orange Lantern's oath is.
At the panel I was at, people were begging for him to do the first part of the oath. He even just started. He's like, nah, sorry guys, no. Because he was looking at Peter Tomasi. They were sitting next to each other, and you could tell he was thinking about it. And he said, nah, guys, you got to wait for it.
Now, of course, it's already been talked about, but just how great is it that the Blackest Night Zero is coming out in Free Comic Day?
Oh, yeah.
They once again reiterated that I know they did it at both panels. Just let people know that's a cool thing to do. It's this is what Free Comic Day is for. It's for to get you out there reading this. You'll pick that up. Hopefully, you'll say, "Wow, I'm not getting this. Let me pick up some DC. Let me pick up some the Blackest Night. This looks kind of neat."
Well, it brings people to the shops.
Yeah, I know. If it gets you there, maybe you can boost up some sales and whatnot. So I don't know.
And that's good
kinda
for the
neat.
industry because Blackest Night's a high-profile event. On Free Comic Book Day, not only are they going to pick up the free Blackest Night, they're going to pick up free comic books from other publishers and other, markets. So it's really, in a way, they're extending an olive branch to the industry when they do that.
Right.
I like that kind of stuff because anything that draws people in the comic shops is good for DC, but it's also good for the industry in general. So,
Now, a couple other stuff that they talked about. Keith Giffen will be doing a Doom Patrol.
he's doing Doom Patrol.
He's doing Doom Patrol, which is kind of exciting. And they announced there's going to be a Metal Men backup inside Doom Patrol. I thought they said
Now, is Doom Patrol a series or a mini-series?
I thought it was a series,
Okay.
but I'll be honest with you, I didn't catch when they said series or miniseries, but I thought they said series.
Because they asked Doom Patrol in our pattern in the yes or no section at the end of the lightning round, and the answer was yes, but they didn't, there's no other details,
Yeah,
obviously.
It was one of those, and also I think Keith is writing the Metal Men as well backup, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Kind of like what they've been doing with those
said it's
anthology titles.
there. Right. They just said it's going to be there. They didn't really say who was writing it. Now, it was kind of funny because, people, when he announced that, people applauded and clapped, and he's like, so what's it going to be like? And he's like, well, are you a fan of the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol? Everyone's like, yay! And they cheered. And he's like, you'll be really disappointed. Yeah, exactly. And he goes, are you a fan of the original Doom Patrol? Everyone's like, yay! He's like, you'll be really disappointed. He's like, this is his interpretation of it. This is his take on the team. He's not trying to be like anyone else. It's kind of like they kind of compared it a lot to that JLI that he did, where it was he kind of had this mishmash of the heroes. This is my Justice League, and he made it into something. It's kind of that style. He's going to make them very accessible to people. The Doom Patrol, he says, it's going to be accessible, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be that type of, good style. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Because,
I am too. Keith Giffen, everything he's been doing lately, I've been liking. So I'm in.
Yeah. Dan Jurgens was up, and he was talking a little bit about Booster Gold.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. It was funny because, I know they announced it on yours as well, how there's going to be a Magog.
The Brave and the Bold issue with Booster Gold Magog.
Right, and they also talked a little bit about that as well.
They also announced, if I can just do it, then we can go right into Booster Gold. They announced Booster Gold Magog for Brave and the Bold because people were asking, what is going on with Brave and the Bold? Why should I be picking it up? And that was one of the first things they cited. They said after that, there's going to be a spot to see a story featuring the Milestone characters, a story featuring the Red Circle characters coming over from the Archie comics, and then he said then JMS is going to be kicking off his run doing DC Universe characters in Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, and it was kind of neat because they're saying that Magog was basically kind of trying to figure out what happens next. What does his future lie? And Booster kind of knows it. And should he tell him? Should he not tell him? It's that whole what's going on with that type of storyline, and it's that kind of arc. And then after that
would be hard.
Yeah.
Just talking about that. Imagine you had time travel capabilities. You came from the future, and you knew elements of people's stories. Maybe the whole thing, maybe some of them. Because remember, Booster knows what he knows from his own history. Admittedly, he didn't attend many of the history lessons, but he does know some things about people's futures. Imagine knowing something about somebody that could help them, could benefit them, but ethically and morally seeing what happens when you give tidbits of information and knowing you can't.
Yeah.
That would be a very traumatic thing to go through. I like Booster a lot because of philosophically and ethically, he's a character that you look at and you can see the decisions that he makes. I would try to bring back Ted Kord too like he did.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I totally ate all that up. I think that was a good move.
That was a very humanistic reaction on his part.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to do that, if you lost your buddy and your pal? So,
but he couldn't get his head around the fact that he had to let him go.
Yeah,
and it took Ted to get his head around it. I like the fact that Booster is very human. He has flaws. He has strengths. He always is trying to be a hero, but he also has those quirky moments where he's as human as the rest of us. He makes a lot of mistakes, and I'm like, maybe not exactly the ones that he makes, but I probably would wind up in very similar situations thinking that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, now, another things that we're going to see with Booster is he's going to get lost in 1950s.
Wow.
And he's going to be dealing with a gentleman, named The Rock. Well, not The Rock, but Sergeant Rock.
Nice.
Yeah. Kind of cool. It was funny because it was like, he's going to be dealing with somebody named Rock, and someone yelled out, Kid Rock! And they're like, oh, the Rock! And they were throwing around and having fun with it. But yeah, definitely going to be a Sergeant Rock story. So that's kind of going to be interesting seeing, Sergeant Rock, the gruff, soldier, just that hardened soldier, and Booster Gold.
Did they say how long he's going to be stuck back there? Or is
no, that's going to be one of the coming up story arcs. And then after that...
I'd like to see a reason for him to have to be in Easy Company, or to see him, don a military uniform in it.
That's what I'm assuming that our story arc.
I'd like to see that.
That's going to be multiple issue. And then after that,
I'm a fan of things like, we're both fans of Quantum Leap and shows like that. So I'd like to see him really get into the whole era.
But the one thing, then they went into something I was really eagerly anticipating, going back to the Teen Titans, back to their origins.
Oh, wow.
So Booster's going to be somehow tied into the Teen Titan origin now. So we've seen him deal with, with how, from the past with his interactions with Batman, his interactions with Guy Gardner, which prevented Guy from getting his ring. Hell was closer because he talked the Guy into going back to Michigan to talk to his old man and stuff like that. So we're going to see some more interactions with that type of stuff. More of that Quantum Leap stuff that you were saying. That it's just a great comparison for Booster Gold is Quantum Leap, but we're going to see him dealing with the Titans. So I was like, yay! I
adore time travel stories, so I'm excited as can be for this.
Now, probably I'm going to say this was probably the biggest news from the panel. They announced that there are going to be some Final Crisis Aftermath titles.
Yeah, when you told me about this, just in passing, you told me about one of them. I had no idea these were coming. I think this is great. So what's coming up?
They're limited series. They're 6-issue limited series. There are 4 series. And they're taking different characters and personalities and just kind of fleshing more out what happened to the world after the Final Crisis event. What do people know? What don't people know? That type of stuff. Now, the first title is called Run. And they showed the cover of it, and it's our buddy, our pal, the Fire Weasel, the Human Flame.
Nice.
And the Fire Weasel is the terminology they were using in the office when they're creating it. They're like, this is how we're referring to this guy, because everybody hates him. The heroes hate him for gloating and videotaping the death of Martian Manhunter, and the villains hate him because they feel he sold them out to Darkseid and to Libra. So everybody wants to kick this guy's butt, and he's like, the only chance he has of survival is running, scrambling, but the only problem, this guy is not the brightest person in the world, and he makes a lot of stupid mistakes along the way. So you see some, you'll see some horrific stuff. You'll see some funny stuff because he's an idiot. But it's a non-stop, constant, boom, 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 running. We talked about with Piper and Trickster,
right?
Their story arc, how it first had that feel of bump, bump, constantly moving.
Run, Lola, run.
That's going to have this one's going to have that same type of feel to it. Now the next one they talked about was Escape. Okay. And Escape, they showed on the cover Nemesis, chained and beaten badly. What happens is the global security network, they form kind of like the DCU versions of Gitmo. Okay. But unlike the U.S., they don't treat their prisoners as nice as we did. It's some serious torture, some nasty stuff. Anything they perceive to be a international threat, they're capturing these people, heroes, villains, you name it, locking them up, torture. They said this is going to be some graphic stuff, some wow moments.
Who's writing this?
They didn't say who was writing any of them. They just flashed up the books, told a little bit of something about them. Ian Sattler was the one who actually talked about each of these, and I'm assuming he's going to be the editor for them, I believe. Now
he's a senior story editor of DC Comics, so they'll probably have other editors attached to the books, but he oversees all of it in that role. So
now they did say in each one of these series there will be at least one moment where you will put down your book and say, I can't believe they just did that. Wow. And they had during the question and answer period, they had a really cool part where someone asked them, hey, how's Wonder Woman feel about Nemesis being captured and tortured? And they kind of handled it a little tongue-in-cheek, and they're like, yeah, I wonder how she would feel about that, and just wouldn't, of course, give information, but you think about it. How's an Amazon going to deal with someone capturing, torturing, taking away her love, her, brother, because he is an official Amazon, and just her general dislike and distrust sometimes
Well, this
for
is her
that.
spouse to be, and if you think about when you're at that stage in a relationship, for most relationships, that is an era of like extreme bliss. The connection that you're making with somebody, the connection and the feelings that you have for that person, that is something you do not want to mess with at that point in time. Wow.
Yeah, so that's going to be some cool stuff going on there.
I can't wait to see that.
I know. Now
wait. I'm hoping whoever they got to write that. I mean, we both. I know we're both
We're both thinking the same thing.
Who I would love for that to be who writes that, but whoever is writing that, if it's not Gail, I'm hoping that person really nails that right, because I'm loving Sir Thomas of Cleveland right now.
I know.
He's our boy.
Yep.
And I want to see how. I'm excited. More Nemesis, man.
I know.
I like him a lot.
The next one.
I'm sorry.
The next one. Tattoo Man.
Oh,
the title
yes.
is called Ink, and this was a really cool concept because they were saying he tries to do good. He honestly tried to be a hero, and he got the honorary member of the JLA, and it's kind of a cool thing there. And You mean he's not part of the team? Well, no. Right. But so he tried to do good. He tried to be a good guy. I know. I'm just going to keep moving on and ignore you. But here's the cool thing, though. Back in his neighborhood, back in where he's from, he's kind of like now an urban legend. And it starts spreading on what he did to the point where they're talking, on the street. It's like he's the guy who saved everybody. He saved Superman single-handedly. He threw down, he beat it, and it just escalates. So you go down back to that life, and
so he's got a legend.
He's got a legend. He's got a rep, and it's kind of tough because evil is addictive, and there's the addiction of evil. And can he fight it? Can he stay on the truth and narrow? Will he go back?
He's got to fight his.
Wow. Oh yeah, he's got to. Will he stay the hero? Will he go evil? And they also said there's a very disturbing scene where we see exactly what happens when his tattoos all leave him. Yeah, and that's all they said. They wouldn't give any details as to why, how. They said it's a very disturbing scene. So I'm like wondering what's going to happen to the guy. That's probably like one of the wow
you're being
moments.
Stripped of a part of yourself. It'd be like losing an arm or something.
It could be something that it could go down to the bone and muscle. Who knows how much of the tattoos are him?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think that they would be beyond surface level. That's a good point.
Now, the last one was hysterical because they're like, we're not even going to show you the cover. We're just going to give you the name first and let you guess who it is. The name of the title is Dance, and everyone said Super Young Team. Yes, oh man, the Super Young Team, and it's kind of cool because here these kids had this chance to be epic heroes, and they did knuckle up and they did throw down and they did this, but now it's all over. So what's going to happen? They're going to start becoming corporate shills. They're going to start, trying to capitalize off of this, make, some fame off of this, make a bigger name, a bigger rep, and you start seeing the seedy underside of, fame and fortune through them. You're going to see a lot of there's probably going to be some drug usage. There's definitely going to be some sleazy sex toy type escapades with this, but you're also just going to...
Who's writing? Any writer?
They never said who's writing any of these, which I wish they had, and but they just announced the different the different books. So these four things I'm really looking forward to, and I'm like they've
been announced as the new Forever people.
Right. Well. Right. Yeah. So
it's interesting. I guess I didn't expect them to still be on Earth.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to be on Earth Zero.
Wow.
And they're going to be here. And they didn't really answer that many questions about the fifth world. It is just basically the new consciousness of the new gods. It is the new rebirth of the DCU. So this is something we're going to see explored further on with the new gods. They didn't really lay out that this is going to be the new gods exploration. We're going to do it here. This is more about the Super Young Team. But this is probably like the beginning. We're going to start seeing more and more from the new gods slowly and eventually. It's not anything they're talking, because one of the things they did say, they want to focus on the DCU proper. They want to focus on the main headlines, the big power players. And that's what this is really going to be going forward through.
So I guess I was misunderstanding things. I was assuming that the new gods were going to be a part of the Earth 51. I think they just mean the Kirbyverse characters like Commandy and the Tiger Creatures and things like that. But things like the Super Young Team and the New Gods and all that are still part of our universe.
Yeah, I think they're still here.
Okay,
and
I misunderstood things then.
Yeah, and actually I misunderstood as well. It wasn't until really they started just kind of going into.
I like that better.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Now, a couple other stuff they were talking about is, of course, Flash Rebirth in April. So, just people were excited about that.
There's a great promo in our program.
In the book program. And Jeff did say that, Bart is, of course, on our Earth.
Right.
And our timeline, and he is going to have a part in the Flash universe. And he may have a part in the Teen Titans verse. They don't know yet. They don't know where he's going to be. But he's
that's
definitely
something they're negotiating, trying to figure out where he's going to go right now.
Yeah. But he's definitely still going to be around. He's not just going to be a bit part. And same thing with Walt.
I'm really torn on that. I don't know that he has to necessarily be a part of the Teen Titans anymore. Only because I'm really liking that Sean McKeever's pulling in some different characters, kind of doing his own thing. Now, if McKeever has a story to tell with Bart, I'm great with it. I like him in Titans. I'm not saying I don't, but I don't know necessarily that we need to go that route. Like Robin, I don't know that necessarily need him back there right now. I love Robin in Teen Titans, but I'm liking the exploration of Wonder Girl as a leader, having her be able to step up as well. So because she's not in her own book.
Right.
So, this is our chance to see Wonder Girl, and a lot of these other characters aren't either, so...
And speaking of Titans, McKeever was talking about the Titans, saying how they're going to be wrapping up the membership drive. They're going to have a team of 18, but it's not going to be 18 at one time. Mm-hmm. It is going to be a set unit, whoever's available for the mission and whatnot, that type of stuff. But it's kind of a neat thing because you said their first test is going to be Jericho. And it is going to be the Death Trap, Teen Titans, Vigilante crossover tie-in event. And the one comment that he made is like, Jericho's going to try to out Deathstroke. He's going after the Teen Titans for the same reason Deathstroke always went after the Teen Titans, to take them out. And we are also, and he made it a quick comment, because someone asked him about the Terror Titans. He said that's going to play out. When that's played out, we'll see some of them in some of the heroes, some of the villains, some of the people involved in that with the Teen Titans. We may not see all of them because some of them may die, but whoever survives may be involved with this. But he did say we're going to see more of Rose. Yeah. So Rose, it sounds like Rose is coming back to the Teen Titans.
Well, Static's for sure.
Yeah.
So Rose and Static are for sure from Terror Titans. Who had any doubt that Rose was coming back?
Yeah, I know.
I love Rose.
And on one of the covers that's solicited, there's a hooded character that you can't see who it is. You can't tell who it is, and everyone's been asking him about it. And every single time he's asked, he won't answer. He's like, oh, really? Yeah, that's interesting. Because someone at the panel said, hey, that looks like a very interesting person. Like, oh, yeah, it is a very interesting person. Won't answer who it is. Won't give up any details. Is that, is that Bart in a different costume, kind of like a Smallvilleized costume? I don't know. I think it was Ziggo was sitting here. He and I were talking. He was thinking maybe that was Kid Devil without his powers, in human form, never getting his powers back. Who knows what is actually the deal there? So
he's got to be back. I don't know. Kid Devil is important to me on that team.
Yeah, definitely got to be part of the team. But could he be on the team without his powers?
I don't know.
Could he do it? Part of me thinks a hero is a hero. A hero finds a way. So maybe if he doesn't have his powers, maybe he shifts his power set some other way so he stays on the team. I don't know.
I like it. He's a good kid.
Yeah, definitely got a good kid. They talked a little bit about Trinity, and there was a lot of love for Trinity from the audience and from the creative team. They're just talking about how cool it's been with the backup stories, with the artwork, and just building the story.
Was some of the creative team there?
Yeah.
Well, Mike Norton obviously is here at the con. Anybody else?
Actually, no. None of the creative team for Trinity, I don't think, was there.
So Mike Norton wasn't on.
No, he wasn't on the panel. Okay. No, sorry about that. But the editors and all that were talking about just giving it some love, which was kind of cool.
It's a great book.
Yeah, and they're in the final stretch. They're in the home stretch of the creation process. They said they're down to single-digit issues that they're working on right now. So you think about that. They're keeping not only in schedule, they're keeping ahead of schedule and keeping on time. And that was, you got to think about it. That is an impressive thing that, they're ahead of schedule. They're working through this, and this has been a very daunting task. I was hoping they'd give a little bit more details on the next weekly series, but they really didn't mention anything about that at my panel.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of big-name creators crafting this thing, so I don't know. It's interesting. Greg Rucka, in the panel that I was at, they were asked about that next weekly series, and Greg Rucka was the first one to pipe up saying, it's really cool. So is he involved? I mean, that wasn't him admitting that he was involved in it, but he at least knows something about it. So I don't know. I'm wondering if it'll be multiple creators or what's going on.
Yeah.
They seem to they've done a really nice job at putting creative teams on this series that work real well together.
One of the things I did forget to mention before, when one of the Fifth World questions came up, Jeff Johns did do his Blackest Night comment, and everyone kind of laughed at first thinking he was joking.
Which one?
They asked about the Fifth World, when are we going to see more of it, what's going on with the Fifth World, and he said Blackest Night, and everyone figured he's joking, and then they're like, no, we're serious. After Blackest Night, we'll start introducing, and start exploring a little bit more of the Fifth World.
Okay.
And you're going to get a better view after Blackest Night. So there may
So
be...
it's after Blackest Night,
Right.
not like during.
Well...
Well, maybe
I think it's going to be one of those
play into it somewhat.
introduced during Blackest Night. You're going to see some threads or maybe some beginning of some explanation on it. Maybe it'll be new gods interfering. Maybe it'll be a dead new god. I'm thinking Orion, maybe.
Or Darkseid.
Or Darkseid.
Or both.
Or, yeah, maybe both. Who knows? But they definitely said there'll be, wait till Blackest Night. There'll probably maybe even be some threads. Who knows? They weren't very forthcoming. They were a little cryptic on it, but there was a definite reference to it, which...
Cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. And it was funny, they once again had the Batman R.I.P. and the Final Crisis question. What's going on? When did this occur? That type of stuff. So they pulled up that same...
flowchart?
That same flowchart that you had in your booth.
Can I talk about that real quick?
Oh, yeah, please do.
At the panel I was at was it was Friday nights, and they introduced this flowchart of how making sense of Batman being alive. The panel on Friday night, the first DC Universe, the DC Nation panel, the point of that one is it's their chance to do a Q&A with the fans, get feedback. What do we do right? What do we make mistakes on? So they were, it was fine to throw out criticism. They took the criticism, they addressed it, and it was... The first thing was, of course, trying to make a sense of Final Crisis. They've obviously been paying attention to the fact that there's, a nice division over what's going on in Final Crisis. So they threw up first the cave drawings on the cover of Final Crisis number 1. Then at the end of R.I.P. that the helicopter blew up and, Batman supposedly died. Final Crisis number 3. One of the audience members shouted out, because they were pulling these from the audience. They threw up a cover, went to the audience and said, tell me what happened. Final Crisis number 3, somebody yelled out, Grant's peyote started working. Dan DiDio stuck with that, went on to Batman Last Rites, those two issues. Batman trapped in the machine, and then freeing himself and going on to Final Crisis number 6, where he shoots Darkseid and the Omega Sanction. Final Crisis number 7, Superman finds Batman. But then he's sent to the past, his body's sent to the past, and we see him doing cave drawings, which leads back to Final Crisis 1, and then they pointed a picture to the head of Grant Morrison, laughing around saying, and if you don't understand now, it's in the mind of Grant Morrison. So they were having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I know, and it was the same kind of deal on mine. They just jumped through, and people were still like, oh, okay. It's funny, now that I understand the pattern, it makes sense to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's bam. I got it knocked out. One of the cool things they were talking to, they were asking questions about, want more information on the Green Lanterns and just what's going on, and they were talking about the different laws of OA and kind of how many laws have we had, and Jeff Johns is kind of joking around saying, about 4 or 5, we'll see, that type of stuff. But Tomasi had some cool stuff where he's talking about Blackest Night isn't going to be just about these dead lanterns and all that, dead heroes coming back. There's some major turmoil going on OA, and it's not just the crazy laws that are dividing lanterns, it's the science cells. There's going to be a riot.
Wow.
And that's going to be, I think, the kickoff of Blackest Night is the riot of these prisoners.
Sinestro's been alluding to the fact that the Guardians aren't doing things right, that there's a big problem with them.
Yeah, and there's also definitely going to be a relationship that develops between Kyle and So who knows what's going to happen there? And even someone sent out a thing. Someone from the audience yelled, "No refrigerators, please!" And they responded back with, "What about a microwave?" So, so who knows what's going to happen to her? Hopefully, she's going to be fine because Kyle doesn't have the best track record when it comes to women.
No.
So some bad luck there. But
so hopefully that won't continue his trend.
Yeah. Now, once again, they're thrown out with Blackest Night with the with the Black Lanterns and stuff like that. They asked about Thomas and Martha Wayne. And he didn't say. They're like, "You're not going to be cruel and make Thomas and Martha Wayne." And he's like, "I don't know. Am I a cruel guy?" So not a yes, not a no. But I don't think we're going to see Thomas or Martha Wayne personally.
Well, the only way that would work is if Bruce was there.
Right. So I think that's not going to be a big deal there. So
right.
Now, the one thing they did ask about is with Robins, not just in the Blackest Night, but also they asked about. Someone asked a question, and it was quickly answered, and then moved on to the next one, and no one really made a note of it. But I kind of caught on. They asked, "Is there going to be a Robin after Tim Drake?" And they said yes.
Damian.
So yeah, exactly.
I was talking about this the other night when we were out. My feeling right now is what we're going to get, and this is just speculation. They didn't announce this. My feeling is that Dick Grayson's going to be Batman, Damian's going to be Robin, Tim Drake's going to be Red Robin.
Yeah, you know what? And
then my other variation would be, if not that one, Dick Grayson Batman, Jason Todd Red Robin, and Tim Drake Robin. But I'm more inclined to believe that Tim Drake's going to be donning the Red Robin outfit.
And I'm kind of liking that theory. And I've been saying all along, Nightwing will shift over to Red Robin. And I'm going to change that right now, formally and officially say I'm backing your theory on that. I like that idea. Because I was always holding to the fact that Bruce would be Batman. There wouldn't be a new Batman.
Oh, I was too.
Yeah.
But now that I have to actually explore the possibility that maybe it's not going to be Bruce,
I like that.
That's where I think things are going. Honestly, my personal preference between who's behind the mask is Dick Grayson.
Yeah, and I think so. I think we're going to see it, and I don't know. I'd like to see it. I honestly would like to see some change there. One, you think about it, the Nightwing name is taken by somebody else now.
Right.
So who knows when that person's time in the DCU is done? Will he return to be a Nightwing? Will he change up and be somebody completely different? Who knows?
I think that depends on what happens with Bruce.
Right. A couple other just quick stuff. They asked who is Superwoman, and they're like, "Do you really want us to spoil that for you?"
No.
It's the fun of reading the book. Keep reading. You will definitely learn who Superwoman is, and you will learn her whole backstory. You'll get all of that. Same thing with Flamebird and Nightwing. You will learn who these people are.
Oh, yeah, I want to know. But I want to see it in the story.
They're going to be told in the story, and the one is in Action Comics, and the other one is in Supergirl.
Right.
So it's keep reading and enjoy. And I got to echo that sentiment. That was a cool thing. And
Supergirl, with the lead line mask of Superwoman, I mean, that's really great. So
yeah. So they did ask about Simon Dark, with Simon being canceled. Do they have any idea where he is or anything like that? Is he going to make appearances again? And they're like, right now, Simon is an unknown. They don't have any plans to use him in the future, so we're not going to be seeing him pop up again. So
the final issue sounds pretty final from the solicitation.
Yeah. That's basically about it. They had a little bit about Wally West is going to be outside of Titans, so he will have appearances outside of that book. He'll probably make some appearances in the Flash titles, maybe somewhere else. They didn't really give too many details. That was just a quick yes or no answer. The question was, is he going to be outside of Titans? Yes. And that was it.
They alluded to that on the Friday night panel, too, that we were going to be seeing him in more places than just Titans. So he's going to be prevalent in the DC universe. The Friday night panel, because it was mainly a lot of Q&A. There's some things. Somebody was yelling, "I love your price change to $1.99." Now, to preface this, earlier in the evening, there was a guy who said, you guys got to stop going to the multiverse, the future, time travel, space travel. That's where Dan DiDio ripped off his shirt and put on it had the Red Rage shirt on from the Rage of the Red Lanterns. I agree with you. So he kept changing his personality based on the questions and the shirt that he was wearing. Coming back to that, the I love the price change to $1.99. Bob Wayne pops back and says, "Now remember that guy in the back that said that we can't go to the multiverse anymore? Well, there's a world on the multiverse that sells comics for $1.99, but we can't go there."
Bob Wayne, king of one-liners, man.
Right.
He just throws it out there. I like that guy.
Does death mean anything in the DC universe was brought up. And, it was interesting. Greg Rucka came back that not all characters are returning. There is a plan in place. And, he just said that there's certain characters that are being returned because of story-driven reasons that are being used. I'm a big fan of this. I think death in comics needs to mean something, but it needs to mean something in the sense that if you're going to kill a character, it should be for a heroic reason, should be a heroic story. It should show that that is something that there was no other choice. They gave their life in some way that was ultimately... It takes their character to another level. It takes their sacrifice to another level. But, I don't know, if you bring a character back, my only problem with bringing a character back is when there's no plan for the character. I think any writer should be able to bring back any doggone character they want to, as long as they have a long-term plan for using the character. If you're going to bring back a character for shock value and then you don't have anything to do with them the next issue, and then they just go back and collect dust, then you re-kill them again, and that type of stuff, I don't want to see that. And I think that's what people get worried about. But as we've seen, Hal Jordan brought back. Look at the wonderful universe we got when Hal Jordan was brought back. I have no doubt we're going to see the same thing with Barry Allen. Ollie Queen, great example of a character that was brought back. Been nothing but great to have Ollie Queen back. There's been tons of storytelling with Ollie Queen. Those are the reasons why you bring a character back. Otherwise, don't do it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt Kid Flash, there's a plan for Kid Flash. Bring him back.
Oh, yeah, and it's, the death of a superhero, it's just those epic, truly heroic events. And if you have one of those type of deaths, you need a truly epic event to bring them back. And that's how I look at it, really. It's not just about, oh, they don't stay dead. Well, no. Let's see why they don't stay dead. Let's see the story. Yeah. I'm about enjoying a story.
And not even just the epic event to bring them back, but plans for the character beyond that. Huge importance to me.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time.
They were talking about the Justice League of America, that there is going to be a replacement for Batman. And Greg Rucka shot is very, very cool. So I don't know who that's going to be. What character it's going to be, but that's interesting.
You got to figure. I was thinking about this.
But they just said specifically Batman, right, not Superman and Wonder Woman, which I found interesting as well, which means they're apparently staying around.
One thing I was wondering is, like, when Superman's gone for a year, he can't be on the team during that time period. So there's got to be a period, like at least one, maybe two story arcs where Superman's gone from the team. I'm wondering how they're going to play this out, how they're going to do this, because they're talking...
They said there's an issue in JLA where we're going to see how everything comes together and how that all works.
Cool.
So there is an issue coming. They said you'll be very clear what issue it is. It'll be something that's labeled for that purpose. They said we'll make sense of it. And they said after that we're going to be getting to some very intense JLA stories. So there's going to be some true, strong JLA stories that we've got planned down the road. So they said, definitely hold out for that. We're going to be doing that. It was in response to a lot of people saying, well, okay, we did this milestone character story. When are we going to get to JLA stories? And they said, we've got something big up our sleeves. So keep tuned in for the JLA.
Definitely cool there, because and that's one thing they talked about on my panel. They were saying how they're getting back to just the DCU proper. They're getting back to these epic heroes who are larger than life, and they're going to bring them back to these statuses. And that's part of, like, with all these trials and tribulations the Trinity are going through right now. When you survive some type of epic major event like that, you're stronger for it. So it's definitely going to be some cool stuff coming for them.
Questions of the All-Star line come up periodically, and this one was one. They said, All-Star Superman anymore. And they said All-Star Superman, they said they originally had plans to go beyond issue 12 and do another story, but they said right now that they just feel that was a really good 12-issue story, really solid. They don't have any plans at this time to revisit All-Star Superman. They said if there's a story that warrants it, they would gladly go back and do it again. But they said right now there's nothing like that. It doesn't seem like they have any All-Star plans at the moment from what they were saying. So it seems like even All-Star Wonder Woman, it doesn't seem like it's on the slate at the moment. So I'm hoping that Adam Hughes series does see print at some point. I would love to see more Wonder Woman on some level. I just don't know what that's going to look like. But I hope we get something like that. George Perez was at the panel that I was at and got some comments from a fan saying, how do you feel about Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of being undone? And George Perez says, you got to understand how long ago Crisis on Infinite Earth was and how flattering it is to still have that series by writers and creative teams be considered to be worth revisiting. And he said, right now in Infinite Crisis, he said I got to work on that as the art being brought back, referencing that story again. He said now we're into the Final Crisis, which again is referencing back to some of that original work. And he said I'm involved with Legion of Three Worlds. He said it's incredibly flattering for this to be continuing on at this point.
And you missaid that.
What?
You missaid that.
What?
It's the Final Crisis. Da-da-da-da, just in case you all were missing my singing, I'm bringing it back.
I can edit that out. The great question was asked about things like Tiny Titans and all ages books like that. Why can't we get them back on the newsstand? And Bob Wayne had a real interesting answer on that. He just said the big problem, the honest problem with the newsstands they can be sent back, and they get so many of them back, and it's a hard environment to sell a lot of books off of. So what ends up happening, it's not a viable source for pumping a lot of books out. He said it's a hard environment for them anymore. So that was his honest answer on that. I'm thinking more so that comics need to be pointing their heads towards the bookstore market. That way they're on your Amazon.coms. That way they're on your Barnes and Nobles and things like that. That's a way to get comics to more casual fans. Then that'll draw them into the direct market as they become more fans of that. So I liked his answer on that. It was really interesting. Where is Aquaman? In the future, they said, and they yelled out underwater. But then Blackest Night was referenced again. So he's a character that will be appearing in Blackest Night. Hawkman and Hawkgirl, post-Final Crisis, alive in Blackest Night #0, and play a part in Blackest Night. Who knows?
Yeah, what's going on with that?
Well, and here's the thing, though. We talk about alive in Blackest Night #0. They don't say that they're the same ones.
Right. True. And they could be reincarnated. Or Blackest Night #0 could be a recap of how they died. Yeah. And, we see them come back as, Black Lanterns.
I was assuming they're dead, though. Keep Oracle was asked. They said no. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with her. Are we right in the speculation that she may be...
Yeah, well, her miniseries is called The Cure, right?
But it's The Cure for Wendy.
Oh, okay.
Calculator's daughter. So it's interesting. I'll see how that turns out. Once again, Young Justice trades from our buddy Juan.
Yeah.
Not at this time. Juan yells out from the back, "I'll be back next year for you, Bob Wayne." But it's interesting. I'm wondering why what the tie-up is in reprinting that. Is it the Superboy thing? I don't know.
That's my guess.
You think it is the licensing issues?
Because you think about it, they're reproducing some stuff, but they're reproducing the old original Superboy stuff.
Yeah.
This is the more recent, and you look at trademark expirations and whatnot. It could be that they're free to go on the older stuff, but the more recent Superboy stuff they can't do.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. And I guess that baffles me, because why would the older stuff be available?
Well, it could be the point of contention wasn't over the original sale, but the current stuff, like the long-term sale of it, the growth of the...
He's not even the same character, though.
But it's
a clone of Clark.
But if it... I don't know.
They did not create a clone of Clark.
No,
to be Superboy.
Right, they did not create a clone of Clark, but it could be the fact that they're using the name of his creation in a different way than he intended. Yeah. So he should get money for that.
Admittedly, I honestly don't understand all the legalities of this.
Neither do I.
We probably should stop here, because I'm trying to speak on something where I don't understand the legalities of. Sinestro's daughter that situation will be addressed in 3 months. So that was a question that was brought up. The original Professor Zoom, Blackest Night. The Spectre is going to be showing up somewhere soon. The next year one thing is going to be Superman's Secret Origin.
Yeah, definitely cool.
DC villains are getting rings, including some dead rogues.
Some dead rogues.
Yeah.
That's got to be a Trickster.
Right.
Nice.
Joker's part of something, but they can't say at the moment. And that's really about it. Dude, some great panels from the DC
I know,
universe.
This has been...
some great news. Stuff that I really, really enjoyed. We're here with JD74 from the forums. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. We haven't done this yet.
Yes, well, I was supposed to come last year, and it turned out it was on Passover.
Okay.
So I couldn't go.
Oh, I remember that. We had the discussion on the thread.
I had it on the thread, comic book right, and it's funny. I was able to get my money back, and I wound up going to Wizard World Philly that year.
Okay.
So, but I was like, all right, there's nothing I'm going to do. I'm coming here this year. I got to do it. I was here the first 2 years, and I love it. It's this is. 2006 was the first year I really had. I went to like a big con. Like I've gone to like the smaller ones that were like like hotels and stuff like that. And I was kind of. I was back then. I was really too young to remember it. And like if I met an artist, I couldn't tell you. But like now, I'm older and I can appreciate it. Like in 2007, I met George Perez. I met Skyber. I met Gail Simone. I know you guys really like her. It was amazing. And I come home. My wife sees I had this big stupid grin on my face, and it's one time where even being online, waiting for something, it's great because you talk to people. You talk and you say, hey, you like that, I like this, and you have great conversations with people, and I love it.
Especially with something, I enjoy either talking with people with things that I'm already reading or hearing somebody for something I'm not, reasons why they're enjoying it, because that helps me to make a decision a lot of times, hey, is that right for me or not? I'll make a purchase. Sometimes a trade I'll grab, based on something I completely missed that somebody else was saying, hey, this is really great.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things I really like about the podcasts that I listen to. I listen to you guys. I listen to Raging Bullets. I listen to, I listen to the Golden Age of comics, and I listen to Just Bill. I listen to I read comics, and everyone talks about something that I don't really listen. I don't read. I grew up with Marvel and DC. I grew up with superhero comic books, mainly because my uncle, who he had these old comic books. Like the first thing I ever read was this hardcover book, Batman and Robin from the 30s to the 70s.
Okay.
And so it has all the very first the origins of Batman and Robin and first appearances of the Joker and the really the Golden Age stuff. And it goes into the 70s, like when Batman first goes into his penthouse. With Alfred, and it's the redesign of the costume, and I read a lot of those older books, and then I remember picking up my first comics, and back in the early '80s, and I just love those superhero books. But when I listen to like Comic Geek Speak has the indie book of the month, and I listen to these things, it's like I love sci-fi, and I love watching these things on TV, and it's like, well, they got them in comic book format, and so I actually just picked up. Something from two things from Will Eisner. My birthday was not that long ago, and I got a gift certificate to Cosmic Comics, which is in the city.
Okay.
And I picked up Will Eisner, The Dreamer, and I picked up Invisible People. Furthest thing from superhero books, but they're beautiful stories, and they're like pages where there's no dialogue, but there's so much power coming from the panels that you get the story and it hits you at home and. They're fantastic. So one of my goals actually this time was to check out some more independent stuff. Like I just got Girls with Slingshots Volume 1 and 2.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm really looking forward to that, and just to see more of the independent things. I'm still picking up. I have my checklist of Green Lantern stuff that I need to get, and Impulse and Captain America. But I'm definitely looking at those independent trades and. I find I'm really intrigued with the art more than anything else with the independent trades. It's got like a really unique. They have a really unique art style. Like it's not like like you see like in Green Lantern or Captain America, where it's very superheroic and all built and
fits the topic.
Yeah.
Whatever topic's being covered, so your art's going to change naturally to fit the theme and the tone of the book that you're reading. Absolutely,
and I'm finding that I'm gravitating that towards a little bit more, although. I still have to get my Green Lantern fix. Green Lantern. I've been reading Green Lantern since the tail end of the Green Lantern Green Arrow series. So, I'm just loving Green Lantern right now.
I know where you're going to be on Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, absolutely.
And here's Blackest Night #0.
Oh.
That's DC's Free Comic Book Day book.
Well, this is news to me, and I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes.
I am so.
So in May, that's the launch of it, and it's the Free Comic Book Day book this year is.
I'm so
Blackest Night #0.
That's what I'm most looking forward to in 2009 was Blackest Night. And it's interesting because I was so excited with Sinestro Cold War, although I've been getting the showcase volumes, those big the ones that collected the Silver Age stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you read Green Lantern, the showcase Green Lantern Volume 3.
Yes.
They actually have a story that's sort of similar to the Green Lantern Cold War. where where Sinestro makes his own little gang of evil Green Lanterns, and the cover for that showcase is actually they kind of redo it with I think Green Lantern, one of the Green Lantern books where you have Green Lantern and Sinestro like with their arms out, and they have the lantern with one half green, one half yellow. It's amazing.
Jeff Johns is a big fan of taking great concepts that worked in the past and then redefining them and expanding them for today's audience.
It's one of the things that makes him my favorite writer.
Yeah.
I love how he took stuff from Rebirth and like the Yellow Impurity, because if you look at Green Lantern and Superman back in like the Silver Age, there's a lot of similarities to them. Like they both the love interest loved the superhero, but not so much the secret identity. Although we have Hal Jordan, it was more. Now it wasn't only just a coworker; it was his boss, and they both had that Jimmy Olsen type character. Jimmy Olsen, and he had Tom. But Tom was more like involved with the stories, the ventures, and Green Lantern's weakness was yellow, whereas Superman's was powered by it was green kryptonite, but the yellow sun powered him. So it was really interesting to those concepts. But I love how he takes past stuff, makes it more thing, because when you think yellow, really? Yellow? I mean, I could shoot mustard at you then, and you're going to be in big trouble.
Right.
Because there was actually a Batman character who was like a condiment type guy. He had to shoot the yellow mustard and the ketchup guy.
He could have been at that time Hal Jordan's arch nemesis.
That would have been the funniest thing, killed by mustard.
Right.
And I like mustard, but
not as a weapon.
Not as a weapon.
It's great on a hot dog, though.
I'm still waiting for someone to see someone in costume of that. That would be kind of funny.
We were talking a little bit about Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds.
Yes.
The most recent issue that came on. Not just the geek out moment at the end with Bart Allen, which was incredible. One of the things I really liked is this was the issue where we got to see multiple versions of characters working together. The scenes with the multiple Ultra Boys.
Right.
Was a total geek out moment for me because what was it? It was one of the Legionnaires was saying, and I'm drawing a blank at the moment, was saying, "Wow, look how Ultra Boy grows up to be." And wow, he ages well. That type of implication. And he still goes by Ultra Boy.
It was a Brainiac 5 moment, I think, too. This was great. I love, one of my favorite comic books is Robin, I think issue 10.
Okay.
And it was from the Zero Hour.
Oh, okay.
Where you have, and on the cover you have Tim Drake Robin with Dick Grayson Robin.
Oh yeah, that was the issue during. You're right, during Zero Hour before the Zero issue came out.
Right, and I remember it. You see Tim Drake, you think about, he was, Dick Grayson was still new at the time, but look how amazing he is. I love how they work together, and I like there's a funny moment where they're in a Shark Tank, and Tim's like, suddenly I hear a death metal version of the Jaws theme in my head. And it was. I love when you see alternate characters like that. Like, there was one, was a Superman one, where you see Superman surrounded by different versions of Batman. And I think that was during the Zero Hour. Like, in the cover, you see Superman, and you see, like, the animated version of the Batman, and you see, like, the Bob Kane Batman, and you see the Dark Knight Batman. And they did that in the comic book. You see, there's always 3 different versions of Batman he's dealing with. Like, there's, like, the Dark Knight Batman, the Neil Adams like Batman drawn, or you see one where the 50-foot cape. I love when you see different versions like that. Even with the Justice League issue where Vixen goes into that other world where you see like Paladin as Batman. I would love to see more interaction in that battle, where you see Paladin and Batman fighting, or the two Green Lanterns. That would have been kind of cool. I know it's not part of the story, but it still would have been interesting.
I'd almost like to see a multiverse series, though. One where it's kind of like what Legends of the Dark Knight used to be, where it's arcs, and they don't have to be set length arcs, where you can do one-shots, you can do full arcs, you can do 3 issues, you can do that. Some of these different just wacky multiverse concepts, and I'd like to see where it doesn't have to necessarily be limited to the 52 worlds. They could be limited to, they could do alternate realities, so you could really let creators go anywhere. Because a lot of times they'll create variations on iconic classic characters like you're talking about, where they're really close to what we're used to seeing, but there's a little twist. And sometimes I was a big fan of like books like Marvel's What If and things like that, where you get to see if one event just changed. One little happening has changed, either in the origin or during the life of the character. It can cause a whole ripple effect on that character's universe, and that type of stuff is always fun to explore. It's always fun to see.
Have you been reading like the Marvel Noir stuff?
Oh yeah.
Like I love the Spider-Man Noir stuff, and like when you guys brought it up, actually, I had thought in my head they could have like it's sort of like the Brave and the Bold series. Like it could be like Tales from the Multiverse. And like it'd be an ongoing, and like maybe a different story arc with like a different writer and a different artist, and it'd be something different from the multiverse. Like one time maybe it's something from Earth 52 or coming from like Earth 31. Like I would love to see like a classic Captain Marvel storyline. That would be awesome. It'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to tie in the which Earth and all that stuff. I think they're trying to keep the different Earths kind of open up for interpretation for later on, maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I mean, I think there's so much you can do with that, because within the 52 Earths, you have the 52, alternate universes. So I mean, there's a lot you can be done, and there's a lot that can be. There's a lot of stories in those, and there's a lot of like, a lot of things that can be told, and I think a lot of people have found interest in that. And to me, it's an interesting concept because it's not something where like you could pick up like halfway through like a new arc and not need to catch up on like what happened before, and just be like a Brave and the Bold. Because that to me would be interesting, because like to me Brave and the Bold was my gateway to certain comics, like Blue Beetle, for example. I didn't really catch on to Blue Beetle bug until issue 3 of Brave and the Bold. I laughed out so hard with the Blue Beetle Batman team up. I'm like, I gotta read this book, because if this series is even half as funny as this one issue, I'm missing out. And I went and I got every issue of the Blue Beetle, and I'm as bummed as anything that it's I'm getting to the last issue, but I go back to it every now and then and read it, and I laugh. Mm-hmm. It's a funny book. I think you guys are saying that it reminds me of early Spider-Man, because it really plays a strong role on like the supporting characters, and I love watching it on the cartoon now with the Brave and the Bold.
Oh yeah.
Did you see the one where they did the flashbacks with the original Blue Beetle?
Yes.
Ted Cord?
Yes.
How great!
And then wait, and not only that, he got to fly. The boat. Yeah, it was great. How cool was that?
I think my favorite part of that was Batman and Ted Cord, and as they're breaking in, they're like, "Oh, how'd you do that?" And you go, "How'd you make that work?" "Oh, well, I had to do this, and this." He goes, "Oh, I can never get that to work." This is like how they were making their gadgets, and it was just like, that is funny. That was great. It was the greatest moment. I actually haven't watched The Brave and the Bold this time. Like I have it on tape, but Nort's on it. How can you like? It's gotta be laugh out loud funny. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that whole Blue Beetle series was one of those that, like I said, I mentioned on the show that it felt very Spider-Man to me. Yeah. And it definitely had that vibe to it of just a great teen character that was saying the things. Spider-Man, one of the best Spider-Man for me is when Spider-Man's inner dialogue or outer dialogue matches what we're all thinking.
Oh sure, absolutely.
And he'll make a wisecrack about it or joke about it in some way, and that's funny. It's Blue Beetle's never slapstick.
No,
it's really it's more of what's funny about it and charming about it is he's in these intense situations, thinking and saying in his head what we all would be if we were in those situations,
absolutely.
Life and death.
It's funny because I always think with Spider-Man, like one thing I always remember is like, he always says something like, well, this wouldn't happen if it was Captain America, or this wouldn't happen if it was Thor. These things don't happen. Why don't these things happen to them? But with Blue Beetle, he goes to his, sometimes he goes to his parents to get advice, and I go to my parents still now to get advice, and he's that type of character that anyone could be, just thrown into that situation, and I think that's what makes him so accessible, and I think so appealing to people.
When the Scarab started talking, that was one of the best things to happen to that comic book.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the Scarab became this huge supporting cast member, and it was really awesome.
I think the interactions between the Scarab and Blue Beetle makes some of the best dialogue, and I'm very happy he's going to Teen Titans. I actually hope you see his supporting cast in Teen Titans, because I love how they do a Paco in like in the Brave and the Bold, and I would love to see them. You know, he supports them. They do all that stuff supporting them in the Blue Beetle, so I could see them as a support group for the Teen Titans. So
at the DC Universe panel, McKeever did say that we would see some of the supporting cast there. So they're not completely gone, but obviously it's not going to be as detailed as it was, in the. In his own title, but we are going to see him make appearances, and so the Beetle family and Beetle support will still be around.
That's fantastic, because
that was mentioned at that panel. That are you talking about the one you didn't go to that I hit, or did they say it at your panel as well?
They said it at mine as well.
Okay. The book was mentioned, and one of the questions that was thrown out at the first DC Nation panel was, "Do we have any chance of getting the book back?" And there wasn't a no.
Well,
so
if you look at Manhunter, that came back for a while.
Oh, sure.
And I think when you have such a quality book, and I think people. It's funny. I don't hear enough about it online, so that tells me it must be good. Because usually, the only time you hear things online is when people don't like stuff.
Right.
And because you don't hear, and so when you don't hear it, like no news is good news, and. I just found that it was always gravitating towards like the top of my list. There's always books that I always on top of my list. Green Lantern Corps, for example. I just love what they're doing with both books. And those are always like if I had like you were saying, if you had like 5 books, I'd have to get both of them because I love all things Green Lantern, and it's one of those books that I don't hear enough about online because no one has anything to complain about.
Well, no, because online the attitude is I'm a better comic fan because I'm better at trashing a book than anybody else. And that's one of the things that irritates me to no end, because I think it's the reason why we don't have a Blue Beetle right now.
I think so,
because
too.
I don't think we have enough people who are, if you're a comic fan, you don't have to like everything. I'm not saying that.
Absolutely.
But, at least give some animate love to the books you're enjoying. Point people to them. Show that you're
absolutely.
A fan. It's why people are so afraid to be fanboys or fangirls, whatever. Stop that. Go out there and tell people.
I'll tell you something. This is one of the reasons why you guys are my favorite podcast, because I listen to you guys just geek out over books. Books I may not be reading, but you guys actually maybe I should be reading them because I love listening to people who enjoy comic books. And I'm on this board, and I'm also a moderator on the Wizard boards.
Oh,
so
cool. I didn't know that.
And it's the same name, JD74.
Okay.
And I actually hate the fact that people are like, this is what I don't like. I love what people, this is what I like. And there are books that I don't like. And if it's a book I don't like, I don't say why. I say, it just wasn't interesting to me. I didn't really get it, but I didn't hate it. And there's no comic book that I hate. I love the medium. I still remember my first time going to get comic books at a place. I was little. I went to in New Jersey. I went to a flea market, US 1 flea market, and I remember there was this huge place full of comic books. I remember looking at the covers and just the amazing art, and I was enthralled. It was just like, how can it be something that you don't like, and even something that I'm not interested in? I still. These guys put so much effort into the books.
Yes.
We're writing the books and drawing the books, and whether you like them or not, I give them all the credit in the world for being able to make something of it.
Well, because it's not for you doesn't mean it's crap.
Absolutely.
There's a huge difference between the two. That word is thrown around way too much, and it drives me nuts.
Absolutely.
Because that to me is just move along.
Yeah.
And give the problem is the internet has this opportunity. The internet fan base is a very powerful fan base in the sense that they could be ambassadors to a new audience of people who aren't touching the comics right now and just saying, dude, you aren't reading this. Here's why. Because there are people on there who are very passionate posters who do these tirades about why everything sucks so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And, please put that energy and passion and that gift that you've got for Gab to good use and get out there for something you love.
Right.
Now, don't make it up. I'm not asking. Honest rants about things that you love.
Well, that's what I love about with your rant. I remember you said something earlier on in one of probably part 2 or 3, I forget, where it was like, I don't mind you saying there's something you don't like, but I want you to counterbalance it with something you do like.
Mm-hmm.
And I love talking about comic books that I love, which is why I love talking about Green Lantern, which is why on the Wizard, the Wizard site, I actually do summaries of Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps for them.
Nice.
And it's because I get to write about Green Lantern for Wizard, and
right.
I'm like, it's my favorite books, and I get to write it, and I get to do funny comments about certain panels, and I have people on the board who say, you must be loving this because there might be something particularly funny I'd said about one of the panels. It's just they're good books, and
right.
You want to get people to read these books, and you want people to I'm going to try to get my wife to read Girls with Slingshots.
Sure.
And I actually got a book called actually a Cosmic Comics called The Adventures of Isaac and Yaakov, which is something that Joe Kubert did, and it's all about Jewish Talmudic stories that was actually printed in a Chabad newspaper like in the 80s. But I got people who probably won't read anything else, but they'll read that because it's something Jewish based. And when there's so much stuff out, there's so many different genres, there's so many topics on comic books, it's hard not to find something that you can't just look at and enjoy. Like, I've been loving the Doctor Who stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
IDWs, you mean?
IDW stuff. As a matter of fact, Colin Baker is going to be here.
Yeah.
And
he's walked by the podcast arena multiple times. I've been geeking out because I got to meet him a few years ago. And, he's immediately recognizable when he goes by. And how cool is that to have a Doctor Who presence here?
I'm so excited. I mean, I just got into Doctor Who from, the new series.
Yes.
But I've been watching a lot of the old series. And I just finished watching Trial of the Time Lord. And I just watched...
Wasn't that really good?
I didn't. I thought it was. Well, it was good. Yeah.
I'm talking about now. It's hard to compare with the special effects, obviously, and the way that the new series is produced.
But I love that because the first stuff, the classic stuff is I've watched was actually the William Hartnell stuff. I watched it in the beginning. So I mean, we're going even further back than with even shakier special effects, but.
Except, you know what? I think the black and whites had an advantage that the shakier special effects look better in black and white than they do in color. The rubber suits, and it's actually a testament to some of the people that were working in color with Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
What they made me believe with people that you could blatantly see were wearing rubber suits, they suspended my disbelief in ways that they shouldn't have been able to.
Well, for me, they were just enjoyable stories, and I've been reading. They reprinted Grant Morrison's Doctor Who, where it has the 6th and 7th Doctor stories in it.
And that was a 2-issue reprint from IDW.
Right, and I got both of those. They're fantastic. And I listen to Doctor Who podcasts, like the Tin Dog podcast, the DWO podcast, and Doctor Who Podshock. And they have their mixed reviews about the Trial of the Time Lord. Personally, I thought he was fantastic in that. Mm-hmm. I think he's such a great actor in that, and he brings so much passion into the
It's a very dark story, too.
It is a dark story. But I can see the uniqueness in the Doctor, like, because I'm like the David Tennant and the Eccleston stuff. They're very unique and they're very oddball type characters. Mm-hmm. But I can see that, especially with the outfit. I mean, the outfit is just something you're gonna remember. It's not. I don't think it was goofy or anything like that. It's Doctor Who. I mean, that's what it was.
Well, it's one of the reasons why Doctor Who's one of the reasons why I'm into space stories like Green Lantern, why I'm into time travel stories.
Sure.
Booster Gold's fantastic to me because you get to see them experience alternate worlds, alternate timelines, past, present, and future. All that stuff comes from my love for Doctor Who, and DC has books like that they're publishing that go through those realities.
Well, Booster Gold, for example, you were saying. I mean, it's just so funny, interesting. Like I've been one of my favorite Booster Gold stories is actually it's one with. I think it's from the JLI one, which with Booster and Blue Beetle, and I think it was Maxwell Lord is kidnapped, and the kidnapper calls like wanting for a ransom, and they're going back and forth, and the dialogue goes, "We're not going to pay for any less than so and so," and it was just like what, you can't say that, and they wound up getting money back for them for Maxwell Lord. It was just the great comedic characters. It was like Laurel and Hardy. Or they were great, and I love reading that. They have funny stuff and like alternate time dimension stuff. They're great stuff. I love it. I'm loving the DC universe. there's something in the DC universe, I think, for everybody at this point in time. I mean,
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I think across comics there are. I think it's one of the rich things, whether you go to Vertigo, Wildstorm, the regular DC universe, Marvel, Independence. If you can go into a comic shop and you can't find something that appeals to you, you're really not trying at all. It's a sad state of affairs.
Absolutely, because when you look at all the things that, you have, things that are based on, TV shows, like you have the Buffy, and you have the Angel, and you have the Doctor Who, you have like Firefly and all that other stuff, and you got G.I. Joe, you got Transformers, you got Star Wars, and then you have all of these
The Trek books. The Trek books that are out from IDW are really
season
good.
4,
right.
or year 4 of Star Trek, and they even have it in manga. They have the Star Trek manga, and
right.
like, I read,
and it's all really good.
And even like Batman, like you have the Death Mask.
Yes, which
I
really
read all
that was
issues of that.
Yeah.
Fantastic story. I had to read the first issue twice because I had a hard time with the
panel order.
Panels.
Yeah, but it was fun.
But once I got into it, it was an amazing story, and I love the art, and it got me interested in other things, and that's what comic books do. I mean, like, there's something in there for everybody. And, like, you like horror, you like zombies, you like, romance. They really have every type of genre, because a lot of it now is being, produced now for movies. And, you like Wanted, you try the comic book. You like, Captain America, like Iron Man, try a trade. Like, I've been looking at, there's a trade I saw with the mini armors of Iron Man that I think I want to try, because I love the Silver Centurion armor. I may just get it because I like the Silver Centurion armor. There's so many different things. You like the Dark Knight. Try, the greatest Batman stories ever told, or try, anything. There's so many different things. Like, I would say for someone who does, into comics, try the showcase stuff, or try the greatest stories ever told for DC, or try, something that collects a couple different things. Like
sure.
Wizard has something like that. I just got a Wizard's collection of they're really great Spider-Man stories, and it's got, for my money, the greatest Spider-Man story. The kid who collects Spider-Man. If you don't get emotion in that, you must have like a rock for a heart. It's just they're great stories, and they're great
human stories. They're stories we can connect with them.
I always try to explain to my wife about sci-fi, because she always says, "Oh, sci-fi, it's spaceships and this and that." The best sci-fi is not about sci-fi. It's not ships and aliens. It's human emotion based in an outer world experience, like Battlestar Galactica. It's sci-fi, but it's about the human condition, the human emotion.
And there's a whole political drama in there as well. There's action. I mean, it's a variety of different genres wrapped up into one.
It's it's your best your best political show. It's your best drama show. It's your best spy action show. It's all that rolled into one. And
they've had murder mysteries on there.
Absolutely.
They've had,
and that's
sci-fi can go to any genre.
Yeah. And even comic books. You read Green Lantern, you read Batman. It's about Batman. It's about fighting crime, but there is an underlining emotional or some theme to these stories, and that's what makes that so amazing.
His relationships with Alfred, with Tim, with Dick are so varied between just those three characters alone. You have moments with Dick Grayson still to this day that are gold, pure gold. We were just talking Nightwing.
The Nightwing.
By
Nightwing one where
Peter Tomasi.
You see
the glider.
You see Peter. You see Alfred and Bruce in the car, and you hear tap tap tap. And the window comes down. Like, hey Bruce, and he talks about, and he gives a nod. Good job on on picking out those on those buildings that you wanted to buy. That was really good strategic and just the confident factor.
But the nod from Dad. Those moments, and so I totally connected with that.
Oh,
and
sure.
it was, I'm like, we don't, and I think the strength is because of the nature of the character. We don't get them very often, but when writers know when to pick the spot, and to make that nod, because it wouldn't be as cool if he did it all the time.
Right.
But when he does do it in those moments and they pick those right spots, it's gold.
Well, I remember you guys were talking about with the Robin, where he comes in and he's like, "Oh, you want to come?" He's like, "Yeah," and he jumps in. He goes, "You forgot your costume." Like, oh, be right back. And it's like, it's so, that gives you a warm feeling in these stories, and it makes you glad you picked it up. And I tell you, I read that book. I felt good the rest of the day. And those little moments, like, did you read Superman for All Seasons?
Oh yeah.
Did you read that one?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Superman moments, ever, was the end of the first issue, where the kid, I think his name is Tyler, he's about to fall off the building. You see his red and blue streak come up and save him, and you see Tyler go, "Cool costume," and you hear him say thanks, and you see a big page where he's like giving a salute. He goes, "My mom made it for me." I'm like, that was so Superman. It's like, he saved the guy and he compliments his mom for making his costume. I'm like, that is the most Superman moment I had ever seen in a Superman. It's a Superman moment of Superman moments to me. And I read that part over and over again because that's comics. It makes you. Comics to me, a good comic book makes me feel like I'm a kid again. And there's so many books out there that make me feel like a kid again and forget about, all the stuff that's going on around the world. And it's just, 22 pages of unadulterated enjoyment. And that's why I read my comic books.
Well, and with the cost of comics now, why would you read them for any other reason?
Absolutely.
Unless you're getting that out of it. If it's a chore or a nightmare for you to read them, I respect that. If it's not your cup of tea, I have no problem with that. We're all different. On anything we like. I gave a copy of Robin. Freddie Williams was nice enough to send me a few extra ones for my school.
Right.
Because of the suicide issue, the one that Adam Beechin and he did.
Oh,
together.
yeah, great issue, yes.
Right. So he sent me some of those to give to my guidance counselor.
Absolutely.
And she read it because I said, do you find this useful at all? I said, check it out and see. The next day she came back in. She's not a superhero fan. She admitted that to me right away. She said, I am not a superhero fan, but she said, I really could appreciate this story and what they were trying to do with it. You know what? I had no illusions at the end. She's not going to go out and read the next issue of Robin.
Right.
It's not her cup of tea, but for that moment, she got to see what comics were capable of. Now, here's the flip side of it, though. She may not pick up another issue of Robin, but she may, if she's in a comic shop and sees something comic-based that has a topic of interest, she may give it a shot.
Absolutely.
Because she's been exposed to a positive experience with the medium and to see that it can do something interesting and unique.
It's funny. I never got my wife. My wife has never been into comics. She always looks at me, rolls her eyes. I'm watching my stuff, and I tape Clone Wars and I tape The Brave and the Bold. It gets it on Friday, so I don't watch TV on Friday nights. But she always Snickers. But she read some of the Mink stuff, like the Plain Janes. I used to work at Time Out in New York, and because of that, we used to get a lot of freebies. Like I read DMZ that way. I read a lot of the Mink stuff, and she liked it. She wouldn't go out searching for it, but she read it and she kind of liked it. And I think the best books, either whether it's a superhero book or something else, it's a good book is something that is not, it appeals to anyone. It doesn't have to be like The Dark Knight. Yes, it's Batman is versus the Joker, but there were so many underlying themes involved, like the scene with the two fairies, where the criminals seem more humane than just the regular passengers on the other boat, and it's just that thing of chaos, and what people would do when backed against a corner, and she enjoyed it. I actually saw Iron Man with my mom. I was home one weekend. My mom said, "We want to go see a movie," and I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "I want to see Iron Man." So, and being my mom, she's like, "Okay, we'll go see Iron Man." She really, really enjoyed it.
My wife, who because she lives with me, comic book properties and things like that, she likes Batman, went to the Dark Knight movie and all that, but doesn't usually express like a real excitement after seeing comic properties. She enjoyed that type of thing. Iron Man, she adored afterwards. She was like, that is a really cool movie. We've watched it at home 3 times together,
absolutely.
Which for her to watch a comic book movie with me again multiple times, that's a sign that she requested it. That's a testament to the quality of that project and how it's got a mass market appeal.
And Iron Man for me, I think, is a benchmark of it's a very simple formula for making a good comic book, because it was so on to the source material. When you stray too far away from the source material and you get something like Catwoman, where it was only Catwoman in name only,
And you just say why? Why did you need to do that?
And I'm not gonna say. It was bad, but I'm just like, it almost felt like you didn't have enough confidence in the source material to stick with the source material.
I actually finally saw it. I never talked about it on the show. I actually did finally sit down and watch the whole thing all the way through. I agree with you in the sense that I wasn't like ready to pull my teeth out at the end when I watched it.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I'm not going to put myself through agony. If I was feeling agony, I would not have finished watching the film. I finished watching it, and I didn't have any problem with it. It's not a movie that I have any urge to go watch again.
No.
Or anything like that. It was a fine use of my time. It was an afternoon movie, and I'm like, all right, for this purpose, it was fine. But the only thing that irritated me at the end was, I'm like, this just on so many levels makes no sense to me. You've got rich source material to pull from. You don't have to mention Batman at all, but you could still stick to the Catwoman concept and have made that work. And they veered away from it way too far.
And I'll take you one step further, because I may be one of the few people who enjoy maybe for the cheesiness factor.
Sure.
But I liked Supergirl, the one with Helen Slater.
I liked that one. I did.
And
that was part of that whole Superman mythos.
The only thing they had of Superman was like a poster, and they had the guy who played Jimmy Olsen. But I thought but they kept with the source material. They used it for this City Candor, and they used the Phantom Zone, and they used the Linda Lee, secret identity. And they didn't make some new costume or anything like that. It kept more or less to the source material, and I appreciated that. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it.
The one I liked for the camp factor, which definitely, and if you disagree with me, fine, no problem at all. Superman 3 I liked. That was one for the camp factor. It was a campy movie as well, but I liked the whole duality of Superman fighting is the red
Superman,
kryptonite one.
That was the Clark Kent versus Superman fight battle, right?
Right.
Probably one of my favorite Superman scenes out of all Superman movies. The movie itself was campy, yes, but that had, I would put that in the top 10 superhero battles.
When he bursts out of that trash compactor, man, and he tears open that shirt and you see him back at the red again.
I thought that was great.
That was so priceless because you got to see him. He was going around causing all kinds of... He was a fun bad guy because he's straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
He's taking the peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
Peanuts at the and he's breaking the bottles, and then he uses the heat vision on the glass. It was amazing. You're right. The duality was great, and
it could have been so much more. It could have been, but for the experience of it, it is a movie I still rewatch it. I still there's moments where I really want to,
And it's got funny moments.
It sure
the
does.
The bowling scene.
Yes.
And he blows he breaks all the pins, and because it's allergies.
Yeah.
I love seeing when they do it right, and you see the characters that look like they're ripped out from the comic books. They're so enjoyable, and I can't say I enjoyed every movie, but
no, I'm the same way.
Like the Fantastic Four movies. At first, I just thought there were miscastings in some of the things, and my main problem with the first Fantastic Four movie was the climactic battle. I thought it was very anticlimactic. I just, when you compare that to the Spider-Man battle, where he's the explosion, and you see in slow motion with the costume getting ripped, and it was just amazing. And even with the Iron Man battle.
It worked on Fantastic Four for me though. When you talk about casting, Johnny Storm and The Thing.
They were my favorite parts of the movie.
You cannot do better casting than the two actors that they have playing them, because they really nailed those characters and their relationships. It's one of the reasons why I would say that they were enjoyable movies for me, because that relationship between them in the comics where they're poking fun at each other and doing all that, that was nailed in the film. I agree with you. It's not one of I don't put it up there with an Iron Man or a Spider-Man or things like that.
If I could have a movie where it was they had more of that interaction between the two, that was great. I didn't really like Sue Storm. I didn't mind Mr. Fantastic. I think he was acted okay, but I remember reading a review on it from a Jewish newspaper, and it was funny for me because there were so many other things wrong with it, and the one thing that they brought upon was that, well, Ben Grimm's a Jewish character, and you didn't bring up that. And I'm like, that's what you had to bring up on in the review? There were so many other things, and I thought Dr. Doom was better in the second movie than he was in the first movie, but still, I enjoy when they do these movies, even if it's not so good, because someone's paying attention. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the view. I didn't see that much wrong with Daredevil, except maybe that schoolyard fight scene.
I liked Daredevil.
I like Daredevil too.
Yeah.
I mean, the
I actually, you know what I
fight
liked
scene-
even better though? Did you see the director's cut on DVD?
I haven't. What's the difference?
There's some added scenes. It's edited differently.
I know Coolio's in some of the edit.
Yeah, it's a big enough difference
Really?
in the tone and the way it's developed that it's worth rewatch. If you liked it
Really?
the first time around,
Yeah.
do yourself a favor and see the director's cut because you'll love a lot more of it.
Well, now I'm interested. Okay.
Because I liked it. I went to the theater. I liked it. I enjoyed it enough. I heard about the director's cut when it was eventually released, and so many rave reviews of it that I ended up watching it. And I'm like, wow, there really is a big difference.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's funny how just a few different changes and tweaks will change something that you already enjoyed and make it
Sure.
something a little bit more enjoyable. So it really was.
You know what? You guys were here. Did you guys see the Wonder Woman?
Oh yes.
Yep. I haven't seen it yet. So you like it?
The Wonder Woman was probably the best out of the direct-to-DVD releases.
Better than New Frontier?
Yes. Let me clarify that. It was better than New Frontier in the sense that this was created specifically for this time frame. It was a story that just seemed to flow. Like, there didn't seem to be a moment that wasn't meant for this medium, this delivery. It went through the rich history of the Amazons. With the Greek origins, and went it brought in Steve Trevor, which was Nathan Fillion from Serenity. He was a great Steve Trevor. There was a nice balance of humor and romantic comedy in there, while at the same time you never lose the concept that the Amazons are badass.
Nice.
And it's really, really cool. We get to see the contest,
Right.
but they play through the whole origin. Yeah. They played through the whole origin very quickly. And I don't mean that in the sense of a short side of it. They do a nice job of pacing where they're like, okay, we've got to get in a big epic story, bringing in the gods and everything that's important to the Wonder Woman mythos. But we also want to let people know who don't have a connection with this character, who she is. One of the things the panel was talking about afterwards as it wrapped up was there really isn't a defined Wonder Woman story, is what they were saying as far as her origin or concept.
About her origin concept.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely, if you look at stories like the George Perez run, or I can't remember. There's a particular writer who did her in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
John Byrne.
Sure.
He did some fantastic, but
I think what they were saying, though, is that if you take a look at the versions and variations of Wonder Woman that has been out there, there isn't one that people go, this is the definitive version of Wonder Woman.
Oh, sure.
She's a character that is
origin.
Right.
Because you look at Superman, it's been tweaked a bit, but it's still the same.
Not
Same
even
with
just
Batman.
Origin's probably, I'm misspeaking saying that. Not just origin, but I'm talking about what era would you say is the definitive era of Wonder Woman?
Oh.
Which one? If you look back at her classic history, there's a very different character that evolved over time into the character that
You're
you
right.
saw perhaps in the
really
70s,
right, yeah.
then in the 80s, then in the 90s to today. The character has, and it's a very adaptable character, which is a strength of the character.
Oh, sure.
But if you were to say for the big screen, which Wonder Woman is the character that you pull out for that? So they said that was a hard part as far as pinning down what tone, what concept to go for.
Absolutely. And you're right on that.
Yeah, so it was funny. We went through and watched the whole thing. And
Invisible Plane?
Huh?
Invisible Plane?
Invisible Plane. And I want to say, too, I don't want to spoil it because it's coming out March 3rd. And we're going to do a beginning to the end on Raging Bullets on it.
Nice.
Because it's one of those that we'll do, the typical, DVD walkthrough. Because I enjoyed it so much that I would love to. I'm not knocking New Frontier at all because I thought New Frontier was a brilliant adaptation.
Sure.
So that isn't a slight on that. It's more so, I guess I liked the originality of this story and it being brought to life.
Okay, yeah.
And
Because I watched I watched them all. I watched Superman Doomsday.
Sure.
I liked it. One thing, when we saw Superman, you had those lines. It looked like he was chiseled, and this might make him look older. And I thought the fight with Doomsday and then the fight with the Superman clone at the end were too similar. It's like they went to the well a little too much in that. Not that I didn't like it. I thought James Marsters as Lex Luthor was a brilliant choice.
I thought so too.
I thought Adam Baldwin as Superman Clark Kent was an interesting choice. And, I find him a little too badass to play Superman Clark Kent. But I'm just picturing Jane in my head from Firefly, and I'm just like, that's not Superman, but it was still good. But the voices were amazing, and so now I went from Batman Gotham Knights, and I like that had that animatrix, different styles, for different stories, but it had my Batman as the voice of it, But I love.
Kevin
and I hadn't read.
Awesome.
I think you were in the book. I hadn't read the New Frontier before I saw the cartoon, so I bought both volumes, and every now and then I still pick it up. Like every weekend, like I don't go out on weekends because it's the Jewish Sabbath.
Right.
So I do a lot of my reading back then, and every now and then I will pick up both volumes and I'll read that in that one day, and it was amazing. It was really good, and I love how they're doing these. And I heard that in the special features there's sneak peeks maybe on another animated stuff.
Yeah, there was nothing at the panel that we were at as far as a sneak peek or anything of something else. There were all kinds of rumors of a sneak peek of a Green Lantern. Those were
that's what.
Yeah. Again, they were rumors because they never paid out.
Yeah.
But that may be based off of the fact that somebody knows something about special features. I don't know.
See, because if there was a better time to do it than this year, since it's the first. Hal Jordan first appeared 50 years ago in Showcase. It was I think it was June, 59. So it's a good time to be a Green Lantern fan, I think, because you're going to have so much stuff Green Lantern, and next year is Alan Scott turns 70. Wow. Same thing with Robin, Dick Grayson, and Joker. They all appeared in 1940. So I mean, it's just if you're a comic book fan, there's so much stuff going on that I read a lot in trade now because especially in limited series, I figure like the Spider-Man Noir, I pick up the little comic book shop, I'll read it, but I'll wait till I want to know what's going on, but I hold off and I'll get in a trade because in the long run with this limited series, especially, I like reading the whole thing. I like getting that there's certain monthly Batman things that I cannot wait. Green Lantern, Justice Society of America. There's no way I can wait for a trade. I mean, it's like I'm like biting my nails, especially like Justice Society now, right? I just read the current issue. How can you not wait? How can you wait to trade for that? I mean, it's like Black Adam, and coming out, and you got Mary Marvel, Black Mary, and it's like I can't wait for that to come out and trade. There's certain things that you just get so excited for, and that's the beauty for me being a comic book, and it's not just comic book fan. It's any type of fandom, whether you're science fiction fan, whether you're in a certain you like.
Well, science fiction fan, it's the new season when it begins, and the new episode comes out. Which ones can you tape? Which ones do you have to watch almost immediately?
Oh, sure.
It's
Harry Potter. I mean, there's huge parties for a new book, or even any other type of story, novel by an author, or a TV show, or anything. It's that fandom, and then that's the part I love about this place because you can be in line and you just talk about your love.
Back to Wonder Woman again real quick. One of the things I really, really enjoyed, and I encourage anybody who gets the DVD or Blu-ray,
right,
grab a group of friends and watch it together.
Okay.
There was we watched it all in the big IGN theater here.
Yeah.
And so it was a movie theater experience with a couple of screens going and all that.
Sure.
And to hear people laughing at the same moments, to hear people cheering at the same moments, because it's Amazon, so you get big 300 battles in this film.
Oh, sure.
That feel very appropriate to the Amazon world, and it's there's a lot of action, and it's very intense, and it's not the type of action that you would see in a Superman movie because that's not Clark's MO. But you're going to get sword battles. You're going to see bows and arrows flying. You're going to see warriors in armor, and you're going to see all the things with the Greeks against the gods, and the just this. Awesome. I mean, it's this type of stuff that you expect. But to share that experience with a group and to be cheering together, whether it's a small group of people that you're watching it at home with, or a big group of people like we were watching it inside the theater with, definitely watch it with a friend or with somebody who's into the whole thing, because there are moments in there. It has every emotion in it. Right. That you could want in a comic book movie. And that's, I think, why it wasn't, I don't mean that as a knock on New, I loved and adored New Frontier. I think it was perfection as far as doing an adaptation. Okay. This I liked because it wasn't an adaptation. I
can see that, because, it's definitely one thing from being an adaptation. You're taking something like even Superman Doomsday, adapted from but if it's new material and it's like an original story, I can see the wonder. I can just see the wonder in that. No pun intended. But I remember going to see the re-release of Star Wars in '97 with my college friend, and going in there and just seeing it on the big screen. I was like 1977. I was 3 years old when it came out, so it was like seeing it with college friends and remembering what you saw, but on a big screen, seeing it for the big screen for the first time, and seeing with friends and remembering things that you like. You watched on the DVD so many times, or on VHS, and quoting lines together. That's what makes this hobby, or I don't even want to call it a hobby, because calling it a hobby is almost like it's not even fair. It's a love, I mean, comics has been one of my first and foremost.
That's what hobbies are, though. Hobbies are a love. I think.
Sure.
I think a lot of times we as fans are afraid to use terms like hobbies and geeks and love and all that kind of stuff for when we're talking about these mediums.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
There's nothing. If I got a hobby, you better darn well believe it's a hobby, because I'm in love with it. Because a hobby is something that you latch onto and you don't let go of, because it's something that you get a lot of joy out of.
You're right.
That's what this medium. You're right. So hobby, I thought when you were like saying hobby, I'm like, no, dude, you're dead on.
No, hobby, yeah.
And it's a great hobby. Wait, you know what it is? It's a great hobby.
Actually, I'll go one better. I can't think of a better hobby.
No, I totally agree with you, because you know what? It's so easy to continue on with it all the time.
Absolutely, and you can see the history of the comics, and you're going back to like the showcase stuff and seeing how it evolved and see where it's going. It's an amazing medium, and it's I can't get enough of it. And I love Wednesdays. Wednesdays are one of my favorite days.
I love seeing, though, it's funny, I'm glad we mentioned the Wonder Woman direct to DVD release. At the end of it, they showed the credits, and I didn't know who was part of the story. Gail Simone was one of the story writers for the
as well as it should be, because I remember in the Justice League Unlimited, she penned a story where it was Green Arrow.
That's a
Black
great
Canary,
episode too.
Question, and Huntress, and it was a fantastic story. And I love the one that they penned. They did one based off the Alan Moore for The Man Who Has Everything.
Yes.
And I love when you get the creators in on that, like the Legion story. Hey Clark, where's your cape?
Yeah.
I must have watched that. That preview so many times that I memorized it by the time I finally saw it on TV, and it was just. I love when they can get a chance to take their perception of the character that makes it so popular and brings it to a mass audience. Because the Jeff Johns, that I would let anyone watch that episode of Smallville, because it just talks about the love of Superman and what he's going to become and what he is, and
My favorite moment about that Smallville episode was, it was the thing that irritated me when I first started watching it. It became the thing that I thought was the darn coolest. That whole killing thing that was going on in the building just in the beginning really just made me mad. I'm like, the Legion doesn't do this. And I loved that they learned and were inspired by their relationship with Clark in this to make that part of their code. That was something, and we got to experience that.
Right.
So it was funny at the beginning of it. I was like, oh, I can't believe that I'm getting angry at an episode penned by Jeff Johns. By the end, it was the strength of the episode, the emotional ride that it took me on. By the time I was done, I was like, yes, he nailed it. He knew what he was doing. He took me through an emotional roller coaster that as a fan I should go through, and he paid it off. Yeah, and it was very cool.
For me, I had a different. I mean, I thought it was just an interesting take on it. I'm like, oh,
right.
They do things differently than in the comic books, and I thought, okay, I mean, this is a more real world sort of, they Smallville the costumes. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder where they're going to go with that. Are they going to be more lethal? But when at the end, I'm like, there you go. That's what I was waiting for. And it was, you really can't go wrong when you have someone like Jeff Johns or Gail Simone penning something like that, because they know that source material backwards and forwards, that you're not going to get something that's going to be like, what? You're going to get those geek out moments for those people who are into the comic books. You're gonna get that nod and like, wait, with the no flights, no tights, and all this other stuff. That's not Superman, I almost heard Superboy Prime in Lightning Lad's little rants.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, it's Superboy Prime. He's like, that's not my Superman. I'm like, you're right, it's not my Superman either, but it sounds like Superboy Prime. And it was really, I was like, that's kind of funny, you know. It was just interesting how they went about that, and it's
But by the end, though, I do think there were defining characteristics of Clark that he saw in this era with him.
Sure.
And I actually really liked that part of it. It's interesting. I'm kind of in the middle as far as the no flights, no tights now. I want to see it, but it's interesting now that they seem to be taking the red and blue outfit of his and relegating it to when he's being heroic.
The red and blur, and they had the red and blue blur thing.
Right.
You know, it's funny. I remember you guys talking about that. Like you wanted to see him in the costume, and I think I wrote back like on one of the in that episode. I've enjoyed the no flights, no tights things because Smallville, it's not Superman, Superboy. You know, you had the Lois Clark Adventures of Superman, so you know Superman's in there. You have him in the costume. Smallville, I've always felt was a more grounded, more realistic sort of thing.
I agree.
And so, you know, having him use certain powers and not others, I thought was, you know, I did love how he had the red jacket and the blue shirt and the blue pants.
But I like that because of this red and blue blur thing now, he has to be careful when he wears that outfit.
Absolutely.
And that becomes a very interesting little twist now on, that's become kind of his superhero clothes, or kind of his...
and even with superhero costumes, like, I love what they did with Green Arrow.
Sure.
You know, with the way he had the hood, he has,
functional.
He has the hood, he's got the glasses, and he's got like a little voice modulator, so you don't recognize the voice.
Yeah.
They're real world type costume. You know, it's sort of like it's no different than like with the Cassie costume, like you know she's wearing as Wonder Girl or Superboy. You know, the Connor Kent. They're really real world costumes, and you know, it's fun. I like how they make fun of the Tiny Titans when they make fun of the Cassie costume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favorite books, actually. You know?
Oh yeah.
And I love your interview with them, with Art and Franco.
Well, they are two of them. They're here at the con, and they're two of the nicest guys in the world. And the way they were on our interview is the way they always are.
I know.
Like every time I've had the opportunity to see them at multiple conventions. They're always, which is amazing to me, even when they're tired. Because like I walked up to the table before, you know, like a late in the con, where you know I'll say hello and that type of thing. Even when they're blatantly, and they'll tell you that they're tired, they're just upbeat and fun, and they're enjoying the ride with Titans. It's great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, I mean, Tiny Titans is one of those books. They're Patrick the Wolf Boy I got to shout out to, because my students in my classroom are reading that book like crazy, because Tiny Titans was just collected into its first trade paperback, which I just got, and I'm taking it to my classroom on Monday for the kids.
Right.
But it came in my order this past week. But Patrick the Wolf Boy has been something that's been collected of their work. And for anybody that likes Tiny Titans, I can't recommend. It's not a DC book, but it's their own. But Patrick the Wolf Boy is a great read. It's just as fun.
I've got 2 volumes of Patrick the Wolf Boy, and I, you know, there's one where he's playing me Spider-Man, and he's like, and the mom at the end he goes, "No, it's your turn. I would pretend to be so and so last time," and it's like, it was really great, and you know. I actually interviewed them for Wizard.
Oh, great!
And I gave you the information for the.
Yes.
So I remember.
Yeah, you were how we got hooked up with them to begin with.
Right. And I remember interviewing them. I got them on the phone, and they were just as nice as people. They were so great, and I talked for a long time. And I remember meeting. I was really disappointed I couldn't go to New York Con last year because I knew they were going to be there. But I met them at Wizard World Philly. And as soon as I told my name, they recognized me, and I got sketches from them. They both did Green Lantern sketches for me, and they signed my Tiny Titan, books. And I talked to them for a bit. I actually bought some of their other stuff from I think it's called Electric Milk Publishing. They have their own company. So I got some of their own books, and they're just fantastic. They got fun, silly stories, and I love the Final Crisis one they did for Tiny Titans.
Yeah.
It's a Final Crisis, and no offense, I'm really glad that it's over, so I don't have to hear that anymore.
I know. You know what? You kind of get Crisis out after a while.
No. He's talking about your singing.
What? Oh, come on. My singing's wonderful.
No, you know what, though? I will say one thing. I love when you ask, what type of show this is, and when you do the particular songs, like, I think you did one during the Christmas time. Very, very inventive. I really, to me, it's.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to hear more of this now.
Well, you know what it is.
I'm kidding. I'm teasing.
Well, you know what it is.
I am purely teasing.
It's again, is one of the reasons why I love listening to your show, because you're just two guys who love this medium and you love talking about it.
Thank you.
And
it's very nice.
It makes me excited. It makes me happy to be part of this community, because there are other people who feel the same way I do. And whenever I hear like you're talking about something that I don't particularly read or I don't I don't always get, it makes me interested in that, because when you hear someone who's so passionate about something, you got to go. You at least go, well, what makes it so interesting? And you pick up an issue and you read it, and just to see what it's about.
I guess, see, for me growing up, I had friends of mine that were reading books that I didn't.
Yeah.
And they were books that they were very passionate about. But
sure.
I always enjoyed hearing them talk about it, even if they weren't books that I was reading. Because I only, my parents got me a certain, couple books and that type of thing.
Sure.
And it was very kind of them. I always had them. But, my other exposure to comic characters a lot of times through either reading when I was over at their house or them talking about those characters. So I always got a lot of joy out of just that discussion.
Oh, absolutely.
And hearing him, hearing my friend, I remember my friend Michael was one that, he's one that got me into like Legion. He got me into Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah.
Because he was reading those books. I didn't have those in my pull list.
Well, one of the most fun things I remember about summer camp, I went to summer camp from like summer of 84 to 88, was everyone collected, all of my bunkmates collected comics. So we'd all get, a package from mom with our new comic books in there, and we would trade. Like I would get, I remember I was there when the Craven's Last Hunt was gone. So
what a great story that was.
I couldn't wait for my Spider-Man comics because I'm like, I need the next issue. Where's the next issue? And someone else would be reading Iron Man, and I didn't. I knew Iron Man. I sort of read Iron Man, but I didn't collect Iron Man. So I would, once I was done with my Spider-Man book, I trade my Spider-Man for my Iron Man. I trade my Green Lantern for Justice League of America, and it was a fun summer because I got to read probably 5 times the amount of comic books that I normally did, because we were just trading comics back and forth, and when we were done, we would get our comic books back, and it's one of those things that it was magic. I thought it's one of those magical things about the medium.
We did comic trading either, amongst ourselves or with the comic shop, whatever, because you had, very little to no budget to speak of to work with as a kid. And, that was how I got new books. So, like, when Craven's Last Hunt and stuff like that came out, I read it. I enjoyed it, read it a few times, and then, I had to trade it for something else. I bought the hardcover of it because, now to have a copy now.
Sure.
Because it's such a great, great story. And that's the nice thing about them collecting not just new material. I'm glad to see the collections of older material and story arcs. I'm reading Kryptonite Nevermore now.
I heard you guys talking about that.
Yeah, and it's I never read that story. It was and I'm enjoying seeing Denny O'Neil's take on Superman and some of the things he was doing with it. A big inner-gang presence in there.
Sure,
It's, Morgan Edge. You get to see for the first time how he winds up being on the television news.
I remember it because they had the TV portion of that plays really big in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Sure does.
So, and I don't remember reading much Superman. I'm like, Mark Kent's is a TV reporter. And
So
a lot
in
of laying on
1971, that all started down the range because he owned both the Planet and the TV station.
Right.
So he was taking some of the Planet people and putting them on television.
And you're right, and it does make for interesting because it's one thing, to be a reporter and I got to go because Superman, but to be on TV. I'm really interested in that because I love to see what they decided to do to get him out so he can be Superman.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
And it is continually, it's addressed throughout that story arc. Some of the things he had to come up with plans and how to deal with it. I mean, it's no big shock for anybody that it's Superman. He'd make it work.
Yeah.
But I liked the different dynamic, though, and seeing that, this guy, besides going to save the world, he also had to keep his identity secret. And how did he do that? He still has to do that today.
Now, was that around the time where they introduced the Superman robots?
This was in this era. They were veering away from the Superman robots and things of the past, trying to get more back to stories about Superman. So they'd taken a lot of those things like the extra Kryptonians and things like that, and they'd taken them out of the books for a while and shelved them for a little bit. Not in a sense that they had written like deliberate continuity where they were gone or anything like that. They just didn't use them.
Because that would have been an interesting plot device to say, oh, he's Superman's there, and have him, like, you know, make him two different places at two different times. That would have been really cool.
I think they wanted to show him, though, finding his own way to deal with it without using those tricks. And he uses some interesting tricks to resolve it, but it isn't something as simple as a robot version of himself.
Right.
He has to get it clever in a different way.
So let me ask you guys a question now. What are you looking forward to in 2009?
Blackest Night.
Yeah.
You know what, though? And this might be blasphemy to people who are Green Lantern fans, because I am so super psyched for Blackest Night. As a Batman fan right now, with R.I.P. and how that ended, and with the question marks as far as what's going on with Batman and all that right now, I am so Batman happy at the moment. I'm anxious to see what it's going to look like in June from the panels and all that. Right. So it's nice for me because there's this Green Lantern character which I've had, I don't want to say a love-hate relationship. I've always liked Green Lantern, but I've always had a casual relationship with Green Lantern. This is a character right now that is a must-read character for me. I love Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Blackest Night, all roads. It's kind of like if you're a DC fan right now and you're not looking forward to Blackest Night, I don't know what's going on with you, because it looks like there's going to be moments for every character in the universe with the people they're going to bring back.
Sure.
But Batman right now for me, and I think this is true for Superman fans, I think it's true for Wonder Woman fans, Flash fans, there's a lot to be excited about because there's a lot of buzz for all of these titles, and I'm glad that not everything... So I guess I'm most excited that the continuation that not everything's in one basket.
Absolutely. That's the best thing.
Because if you don't like something, if there's an event going on right now, there's something else you can get excited about and jazzed about. So I like that concept because not every story decision is going to appeal to everybody. Not every direction is going to appeal to everybody.
Right.
So if you only have one direction going, only one big event going on, you are not going to excite your entire fan base. But if you have multiple ones going on where somebody can go, this is a little meh for me, they've got something else they can grab and latch onto. But for me, it's, the Bat universe right now and the creators they're bringing back with a Greg Rucka coming back to it. Peter Tomasi being involved. Fabian Nicieza sticking around.
Wonder Woman, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Those were they had.
When she was the ambassador?
He had great stories with Wonder Woman. That's what I was thinking of.
And that Minotaur was part of...
That's what I was trying to think.
That is a great era of Wonder Woman.
It is a fantastic, and then a lot of it's traded.
Yeah, and a lot of that, the political implications of all that was fantastic as well.
Absolutely. What are you looking forward to 2009?
Well, let's see here. Blackest Night, obviously, that's a good one there. Kind of looking forward to the finalization of the Teen Titans recruitment.
Okay.
There's going to be an 18-member team. There's going to be
18 members?
18 members of the Titans. They're not always going to be in every issue, but it's going to be...
a rotating thing.
Yeah, it's going to... The team will be totally of 18 different people. I'm curious to see who the different members are. I really kind of,
I thought maybe they were going to try to compete with the JSA for the biggest membership.
I don't know. They're going for it.
I like the explanation though in the current books prior to that when they had the pared down team because members were leaving. Robin, for example, and all that.
Yeah.
Kid, was it Blue Beetle or Kid Devil?
Beetle.
It was Blue Beetle. Brought up the fact that we should have a larger roster because we're teens. Not everyone can be here all the time. So we should really have people in place for that situation. Talking about the fact that, some of them are in high school, some of them are doing other things. They can't always be there.
And the thing with that, though, is that you bring in that many characters and you have that many rotating thing. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's not a Teen Titan book anymore, but it's almost like a Teen Brave and the Bold.
Sure.
You think about it because you got this rotating cast, and it makes such a broad appeal of characters that there's one issue or another, there's going to be a character that you like. It's like, I'm really looking forward to that. And on a personal note, I have a friend who actually is the editor for that book, Brian Cunningham.
Oh, wonderful!
And he used to work at Wizard, and I know him, sort of well. So he's always on his Facebook, check out Teen Titans, and you gotta support your friends,
Well, that book is amazing. Teen Titans right now.
Yeah.
One of the things I also like about that roster, with having a roster that size, is you don't have to have 18 people, obviously, in every issue. What you can do is, for different story arcs, you can have different dynamics going.
Oh, sure.
And you can play off of the interpersonal relationships. Like, is one team going to be more effective than the other with certain characters?
Absolutely.
And because there's a lot of combustibles in that team as well.
Right.
People that will rub each other the wrong way at different times. What is it going to look like with them working together? One person can change the whole dynamic.
Sure, and what's interesting with the JLU, the Justice League Limited series, you had that because you had different characters with different interactions, and it's funny because I remember I read a Green Lantern annual one time, and there was a story called Just One of the Guys, and it was Guy Gardner talking about each of the different Green Lanterns, and I remember he talked about the difference between Green Lantern and like someone like Batman or Superman. They're guys who were chosen. They can only be one Batman, one Superman. Green Lantern is you were right place, right time, you get a ring. And there's this painting that Kyle's supposed to have done with all 5 Green Lanterns. You have John, Hal, Alan, and I thought when I saw the picture, I was like, that would have been a very cool, like its own offshoot series, like just Green Lantern adventures with these characters. Each issue maybe you have 2 or 3 different interactions. Like I could see like an Alan Scott and Guy Gardner issue, or a Kyle Rayner and John Stewart issue, or something like that. And that would have been interesting. And that's what I think this Teen Titans sounds like. And it brings a really broad range of people who are going to be interested in that, because there's going to be someone on that team that you really like. Like I love Blue Beetle. I like Wonder Girl, although I have a pretty love-hate relationship with her at certain points. Like, I'm glad they got her to a certain point now where it's
I am
like,
too.
I was just like, oh my God. And I don't, at worst, when I was reading Teen Titans at one point, I was like, it's the OC for superheroes. I mean, and I'm not knocking that. I mean,
No.
I mean, we all have our guilty pleasures, and I watched 90210 when I was younger, but it just, I always felt these were teen superheroes. Like I understand it. They shouldn't, not have their angst, but when you get that superhero part, they I want to see them get above it, and they've done a better job at that, I think, as of late. And so I've been reading Teen Titans again, and I'm enjoying it more.
Are you reading Titans?
I have been a little bit because I love Nightwing.
Right.
I mean, I follow books because of characters.
Okay.
So if Nightwing's in a book, chances are I'm going to be reading it. I mean, I love the evolution of Dick Grayson from Robin the Boy Wonder, and reading him sometimes in the Batman family. Did you ever get the old ones? Like,
oh yeah.
In the 70s, right?
Oh yeah.
And so they had like individual Robins.
They had Batgirl and Robin getting married in one and that type of thing.
And they had like Batwoman.
Not really, but I mean, it was one of those storylines where.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had like the Kathy Kane Batwoman.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Like the original one, not the modern one.
No. Right. Exactly.
Like, because I
loved all the Batman tools back then.
Like the Batman from the 30s and 70s actually has almost all the appearances from the original Batwoman and Batgirl, and like how they came about and the team ups. And
Betty Kane, the original Batgirl, was a very cool character too.
I liked her costume, and I thought it was very, very cool. So I love seeing Robin evolve, and I love the Nightwing miniseries, and I love the stuff like the first couple of series, like issues, are amazing. I love that stuff, and he had one of the best logos, I thought, where it was like shaping the mask. I like what they have now. It's more pulpy. But I love that original logo. It's just out there. It's so great.
Talk about Titans. Are you guys excited at all for Death Trap, the crossover that's coming up between Teen Titans, and Vigilante? Because it's coming soon.
Yes, I read about that, and I am looking forward to that. I mean,
a Jericho-based story, obviously.
Jericho-based story. I love those new Teen Titans, and I've always liked the character of Jericho. I thought he was an interesting character, and again, I love what they're doing in Teen Titans with him.
I do too. Yeah.
I think it's great. But I do like, I don't mind crossovers. I do. My thing with crossovers is that I like when you have something that happens in one book. You're going to feel the effects. Like something happens to Superman, you might see a report of that in the news on Batman.
Green Lantern Corps is a great example of that, where they have echoes of what's going on in the other ones.
Absolutely.
I think, is that what you're getting at?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I love, and if you're reading Green Lantern Corps, that's fantastic. I can't read, I cannot get anything that's not Green Lantern. And here's a problem. One of the problems, though, is that I'm reading the new Krypton. I've never been a huge Supergirl fan. I collected Supergirl. I had a Supergirl series where there was an issue 1 where she has like the V-neck and the Supergirl looks like a polo shirt. I have that, but I had the Matrix Supergirl series. But overall, I never had been like a super Supergirl fan. So it's like when they had issues with her, I understood it. You cannot have that. A Superman series, a story like that, and not involve Supergirl.
Right.
It wouldn't make any sense, because what would you do in her story?
Well, and it's also, I think Supergirl hasn't been enough a part of the Superman universe. I think that's
Absolutely
been a big
not.
problem.
And I think that by doing that, you get a bigger fan base. That's what you want to do. That's what I feel brave in the bolts like that. That's how I got into Blue Beetle.
Well, my opinion with Supergirl is, if you're going to have a Supergirl, how can you not have her on some level being a part of the Superman universe? It doesn't make any sense to have her.
I agree 100%. But it's also like with the Batman's crossovers, especially back with Nightfall and Night's End and Officers Down. I never read Catwoman, but I found myself buying Catwoman because I wanted to know Catwoman. I gotta read it. I gotta read it. And it's like I didn't pick up any issues after that, but it was just like it was, and even with the Superman with like the where they had the numbers back in the day, where there was 4 Superman stories, books. There were 4 Superman books,
and they even did a quarterly book.
Right.
That would, for that one skip week that we would have, there would be a book on that was Man of Tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah. And so it's like I look back at my comic books one time, and I'm so sad to say I don't have a lot of my old comic books, because one time my mom accidentally got rid of a lot of them. So I'm still recollecting some my old Kyle Rayner Green Lantern stuff, and it's like I looked at it one time and I couldn't believe the amount of Superman comic books I actually had, because I got every single one because I had all the numbers on it, and it was just like, oh my god.
I've had to at various times sell off comics for financial reasons.
Sure.
And probably one of the hardest things to do is to then look back and say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Because you never get what you think the value is going to be for them anyway.
Sure. But the thing is I live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. Mm-hmm. So it's like, when trying to get places for my comic books, it's almost like a battle, but it's what you do when you love something like that. My wife knows enough that I read my comic books every Saturday when we have time, and I just, it's something that will always be a part of me. I think, much to my wife's sort of dismay, she knows enough now that this is something that makes me happy, and she likes the fact that she loves when I'm happy, so she likes this stuff, but it's something that she's slowly learned to tolerate.
They've got comic boxes. I'm trying to get my wife to let me construct these and patent them. Bunk boxes. Because I need more places to put my comics. I want to create below my bed a stack of 6-high bunk boxes where I can put my comics under my bed, but the bed's going to be a little higher, so we need a little ladder.
How's that working out for you?
I'm trying to get her to get on board with the program. I'm telling her, I said, with comic fans, we could make a mint. I said, I'm sure there's a lot of comic fans that are looking for places to put their comics. We can put them into bunk boxes. I'm sure other wives would allow their husbands to do such a thing. I said, I will try to find you some.
Well, I personally want an update on that, to see how that works for you.
But bunk boxes, if I can get one set made, you will eventually see me with them at a con. Because I'm a big fan of drawer boxes, but I think I can get away with creating bunk boxes.
Yeah.
I'll probably have to sleep in them, but...
Dude, when you start pitching the idea, please, let me be in the room with the camera.
But see, that'll egg her on.
No, I want that podcast. We can all hear, what are you talking about?
You actually should do that. Bring her on and say, honey, I want to talk to you about something of severe importance. Come on onto the podcast. And that would actually be really funny to get her reaction.
That would be interesting. Actually, just to hear her take on comics would be interesting too.
I tried to get her to come on. I don't know. I think she's nervous to come on and do, I don't know, I'll try to do that at some point. I would love to have her come on. I think it'd be an interesting dynamic for a segment or an episode or something like that, just to have her come on and talk about a book.
Absolutely.
That'd be a lot of fun. I want to just get on because I talk about her so much on the show that I think it'd be fun for the audience just to put a
I think so.
put a voice to the person that I keep talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you listen to all of the podcasts and you listen for it as long as people have, you hear about, I listened to Wayne Cordova's podcast, and he talked about his dogs and his wife and the things that they do, and comic, see movies, and it's interesting.
I think what they really need is a comic spouse support group.
Yes.
For comic spouses to be able to get together and to chit chat and to just say, hi, I can see my wife being there. Hi, my name is Mariah. I'm a comic spouse. And
well, think about it like this. I don't know how it is with department stores now, but they used to have like a little area where the husbands can sit down and like wait for the wives to be done with shopping. When I went to Wizard Philly, we did a whole weekend of it, and I met my wife's sister and her husband came. So I went with my brother-in-law, and my wife and her sister. They just walked around Philadelphia and had fun, and they like, because my wife, I can't see my wife coming with me to these things because it's just not her thing, but she loves to hear about me talking about this stuff.
Comic conventions are like grocery store playrooms for comic fans.
Sure.
Our wives are out there in the real world, and we're here living our fantasies out.
Absolutely.
And how cool is that?
Absolutely.
Every grocery store should have one of these.
Oh, sure.
I would go with my wife to the grocery store all the time if there was a convention in there.
And I wish that was a good analogy, but I actually do the grocery shopping.
You know what? When we first got married, I did too. But she didn't like the fact that I buy too much stuff in bulk. I hate running out of things.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Dude, it was really fun to have you on, and I really want to thank you for...
I'm really glad to have been on. I'm amazed. I'm really jazzed to have met you guys. This and Raging Bullets, you guys were the two things on the comic book convention that I was really looking forward to, because I love the community. I love that there's someplace I can go to, and people are talking about comics, and I love listening to your podcast. It's one of those, moments in my day where I listen to it that makes me jazzed about Wednesday and going to my comic books and just enjoying it. It's a great thing.
My first comic convention I went to alone, just because I'm a fan. I wanted to go to the convention. Now I go to the comic convention and there's tons of friends.
Sure.
And it's just such a blast to be able to walk around and you run into people, you put faces to names.
Absolutely.
And, faces to forum names for all of us, and it's great. Where can people find your Green Lantern work, the stuff that you're doing for Wizard?
Well, they can find it on wizardworld.com. There's a lot of people who do on the Wizard World forum, who do they do their own summaries, and mine's called Corpse Curriculum.
Okay.
And I basically I get the book on Wednesday, I read it, and I do a summary of it, and with a couple highlight panels. And so you can find that on wizardworld.com. It's called Corpse Curriculum. There's a lot of back issues. I actually post them on my Facebook page.
Oh, great.
So.
And what's your Facebook page?
It's Jamie Dunst. Actually, we're friends on Facebook.
Right. I'm saying for them.
Oh, for them? I don't know the address for it. But,
okay, that's okay.
But
what's your Facebook name?
Jamie Dunst.
Okay.
So you find me you see Jamie Dunst on Facebook.
I'll put direct links to all this in the show notes.
So definitely, I've friends with a lot of people on the forums, like Wayne and Brian and Jamie and a lot of other the creators, and I love chatting comics.
I do too.
It's a great medium, and it's a great hobby, and it's something that when you love something and you can find people who love it as much as you do, and you can talk to people about things that you're reading and not reading, and it's magic. It's a magical thing, and it makes me happy just being able to be part of it. So.
That's very, very cool. All right, thanks a lot, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hoffman.
Actually, this for me is very cool because I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. We're here with Tom Zahler from Love and Capes. Jim and I have shouted out Love and Capes on the show multiple times because of the webcomic. When I was looking for content for our website, I'm a fan of your work. So when I saw that you're doing a webcomic, I'm like, okay, I can have Tom Zahler on our website. And then you actually just corrected me on this. Because my exposure was to the webcomic, I thought the webcomic came first and it became a print comic. Can you talk a little bit about...
It came first as a print comic. I was talking with Bill Williams at Lone Star Press, and he was the first person to hit upon the idea that if you cut a comic page in half, that's a screen. So I very particularly designed Love and Capes so that if the first issue tanked and I wanted to keep doing it, I could put it on the web.
Right.
So it's built to section up, put on the website. Every fourth panel is a beat. So it reads like a comic strip separately, but it reads like a large comic book when you put it all together.
Right, it's a nice big giant arc.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about Love and Capes and the characters? For some of our listeners maybe who've never experienced Love and Capes, what is Love and Capes?
Love and Capes is a superhero romantic comedy. It's about a superhero who says, I love my girlfriend, I'm going to tell her that, but if I tell her that, I have to tell her everything. Because I'm a big DC fan, and when Superman got engaged, I never understood how 6 months later he said, oh, Lois, by the way, there's something I didn't tell you. It just seems like you would kind of lead with that. That's,
right.
So that's kind of how Love and Capes came about.
It's funny, when I read this, I do think of my relationship with my wife. I do think it's a very real...
I think of your relationship with your wife when I'm writing it.
Do you? Yeah. Well, and I'm glad. So it's my chance to be a superhero. But one of the things I really like about it is I think anybody in any type of relationship can relate to these two characters because we've all had these moments where we have to apologize for something, and especially people that are comic fans.
Absolutely.
We always have a lot to apologize for, and it's usually stuff that we come back from conventions for.
Well, for me, I freely admit that I'm a workaholic, and a superhero is the ultimate workaholic with the greatest trump card of all, because if I tell my girlfriend that I have to work late, that's one thing. If you say I have to save the planet, you kind of get a pass on it, but it doesn't make it easier.
One of the things that's really great is your book has been collected by IDW now.
Yes. And it is gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny, I have all the single issues. I actually bought the traded edition because I wanted a collection of it, and you're right, it does.
Yeah, IDW just has, they printed it so nicely. They worked with me on, there were a couple issues with the print versions, of the regular versions of the comic where the blacks didn't print quite right. The first free comic book day issue printed a little dark, and everything just looks gorgeous in the IDW tray. This is like the Gold Master. I think I only corrected 3 panels. There were a couple coloring mistakes and a couple typos that showed up. But other than that, it's as it was originally, just on much better paper and much crisper.
That's fantastic. I've been a big fan of your work. I mentioned when we were just talking right now, Raider was the first comic that I got to know you from, and Raider was collected in trades, and it was...
I did that one straight to trade.
That was such a cool book. Can we talk a little bit about Raider, what Raider is? Yeah.
Sure, Raider is an action-adventure spy book. It was kind of Alias meets Pretender. Part of it was from being a fan of G.I. Joe, where he had a good guy organization and a bad guy organization, and there came this guy Raider who seemed to want to work with the good guys but knew an awful lot about the bad guys.
It's funny when you mention G.I. Joe. When I read your work, it goes back to my childhood straight on through today, all the things that I thought were cool. So it's very clear when I'm reading your stuff. I'm like, this is a guy who very much lived through the same era.
Oh yeah,
because he's pulling all the action beats, all the cool characterization moments that I grew up with from pop culture.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of that stuff translates. I remember it's the closest I'm ever going to get to being like Alan Davis, but I'm convinced that Justice League number 200 is the perfect comic book. It's not the best comic book, but it's like 60 pages. Everybody splits up, different artists. It's just big splash panels. It's just great. And when he wrote The Nail, he actually had some of that in mind when he was structuring it. I'm like, he gets it. He gets it too.
I love hearing your excitement talking about comics and how... because it's clear in your comics that you pull so much from what you enjoy about the medium. Because it's fun. Your work is very fun.
Thank you. I hear that's a kiss of death in comics now.
Yeah. But no, honestly, that to me is, I don't think there is enough fun. Like it's escapist medium for me.
Yeah, if I want to be depressed, I'll have my normal life. You know?
Love and Capes is one of those books. A book that I'm really enjoying right now is Tiny Titans as well.
Oh yeah,
Love and Capes
Art is
fits
just
in
insanely good.
But I mean, that fits in that category for me. It's the kind of book that, like, when I have a bad day at work and I come home, I go to Love and Capes. I go to Tiny Titans. These are fun books that I think are capturing what is important in this medium.
Yeah, and I've based the book largely on a sitcom structure, but I also think that it doesn't mean you can't do serious beats.
Right.
There's always a couple serious, not over the top, dark Sturm and Drang yelling at the rainstorm kind of thing, but there's a lot of earnest moments in it too, as well as the comedy.
What I think part of the problem was, for the longest time, there was this quote-unquote stigma that fun meant unsophisticated.
Right.
And what I'm liking is there's this trend now where we're seeing fun books that are sophisticated. They're touching on the things that we can all connect with.
I keep pointing to Star Wars. The original is kind of the gold standard for it, where this was a movie I saw when I was like 7 and loved every minute of it. Right. And I could watch it at 27, and it still holds up. And there are things that I didn't get when I saw it as a kid that I get as an adult, and it's still, my dad liked it as much as I did. And it's harder to write that, but there's no reason you shouldn't write stuff like that.
And you're right, there was nothing depressing at all about that movie. It was just a fun movie from start to finish. And
that movie actually does have the scene where his parents or his aunt and uncle are killed, and the big music comes up. It's got depressing moments, but it didn't mean you didn't enjoy the film.
Absolutely.
It ends so well, and
yeah, exactly. So you can do that and still have a good time with a film, because nobody walks out of that movie sad.
Yeah, all ages does not mean writing down.
Yes, and that push now that we're seeing is something that I'm loving. I'm a school teacher. I teach 3rd grade. And it's nice now to have material that I'm not afraid to put in my classroom. But then I'm also able to defend. Like, if a parent asks me, well, why are my kids reading comics in your classroom, that type of thing, read it. Take a look at this. Take a look at the sophistication of the dialogue. Take a look at what they're doing in this.
That's how I got started reading. I was reading from like 2.5, and my parents had a reward system that if I cleaned my room, I got a comic book. And I very quickly became very well behaved, and I got a lot of comic books.
And we're seeing more at book clubs and at book fairs at our schools. We're seeing more all ages materials coming out because there's so many creators that are approaching it now.
Oh yeah, and I started with comics, but I read the Martian Chronicles when I was 10, and I was pretty well prepared for just about anything I wanted to read because I started off reading comic books.
One of the things I love about Love and Capes, and it's loveandcapes.com.
Loveandcapes.com, yes.
Is the fact that you can try this book for free, and it's real easy to get hooked into it.
The first 3 issues are now completely available online. They're available through Wowio. I can't necessarily go over there because they don't quite pay. But they're also available on the website in 4-panel sequences, and and there's a new page posted every Monday and Friday, and they're pulling from the older issues. So right now, I think I'm in the beginning of issue 4 online, so that way you can go back and read, catch up, and then decide what you want to go from there.
One of the reasons why I did the ad on this for In Stock Trades, our sponsor, is because I really believe in this book, and I think it's a wonderful book, and I want people who haven't had a chance to check it out. But the great thing is, and I'm glad you were here because I wanted to talk about this, to tell people, you don't have to take our word for it. Go look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's cool. I like that.
To some degree, and I like to think it's because he copied me, Joss Whedon. When he did Dr. Horrible, they gave that away for free.
Yeah.
And well, I was just so impatient, I bought it from iTunes anyway. But he's managed to sell DVDs and T-shirts and everything, giving it away for free, because once you get hooked into it, you want it in such a way that you can keep it. So,
like I said, I bought this. I bought the singles, and I bought the trade. So I mean, that's a sign that and I do that. It's not something exclusive I've done with Love and Capes. I do it with my favorite books that I want to reread. If I'm not going to reread it, I'm not buying the trade.
Yeah.
So and this book definitely does that. So
thank you very much.
Okay, well, Tom, definitely check it out at idw.com. In our show notes, I will have IDW's website on there. I'll have loveandcapes.com.
Excellent.
So anybody that's listening to this podcast, don't worry about writing it down at the moment. It will be in our show notes and on our website.
Okay.
You can click directly on them. And the web strip is on our website as well.
Yes,
so go ahead and check and click on that.
And 2 other quick things. Issue 10 of Love and Capes will be available for Free Comic Book Day.
Very cool.
And because I know you... Woohoo! And because I know you guys are DC fans, one of the other jobs I have is that I design the Toon Tumblers classes at toontumblers.com, and that's why there's a Firestorm glass. Because I'm
right.
a huge Firestorm fan.
Very, very
Been working
cool.
for him for a few years, and I said, if you get the DC license, we have to do Firestorm.
And I'm a huge Firestorm fan as
Excellent.
well, so it's great. So, Tom, I want to thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we had you on the show.
Me
and
too.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Holy caffeine!
Our next episode is going to be back in a few days. We're going to be wrapping up our convention look at some of the DC panels. Particularly, I want to take a look at Wildstorm and Vertigo and CMX, some of those lines that are a little bit outside of the DC universe, to chat about that. Also, the kids' books, and chat about, the all-ages material, I should say, because, quite frankly, I'm reading them. So I'm an adult, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. So they're everybody books is what we really should be calling them, because I think it's that's the material that right now, got to be honest with you, books like Shazam and books like Tiny Titans are books I would never cut out of my library in a million years. I'm also really enjoying the Supergirl book. They're just fun. It's a nice escape, a nice chance. They bring me back the best of what I'm enjoying in cartoons. They make me smile. They make me laugh. They give me a lot of, joy and excitement on days where I just need a chuckle. And there's a lot of the Shazam book, for example, has a ton of depth to it. So these are books that really, if you're not reading them, it's a great chance for you to kind of chat on those. And Vertigo, you can't say enough about the wonderful Vertigo books. Actually, a Vertigo book that I'm reading right now, it's a miniseries, Bang Tango. It's a fun 6-issue miniseries that has a real edge to it. I'm going to chat about it in Speeding Bullets in a little bit more detail in an upcoming episode. But it's definitely something, if you have missed it, go to your local comic shop or order it online and check it out, because it's an interesting little book, and it's one that I'm going to follow all the way through all 6 issues because it was a lot of fun. These lines outside of the main DC universe are just as entertaining for me, and I want to chat a little bit about some of the news that has me excited. So Jim and I will be doing a little episode about that coming up in part 3. We definitely have a lot more content to come, so thanks so much for sticking with us for this New York Comic Con reports. Hopefully you're enjoying these as much as we did recording them. It was a blast. If you haven't been to the New York Comic Con before, it's going to be October 2010. They're switching the dates, so definitely consider joining us, because I'm definitely planning on going again to the next one, because it was just such a wonderful experience, and I'd love to hang with you there. So, New York Comic Con. Our sponsor for this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up Oracle, number 2 of 3, written by Kevin Van Hook, art by Don Kramer and Jay Leiston, cover by Guillem March, and I apologize if I'm butchering that. The calculator will go to any lengths to save the life of his daughter Wendy, even if it means using remnants of the anti-life equation to do so. But when Oracle intervenes, she soon finds out that the calculator has been killing internet hackers from across the globe to get his hands on the equation. And the final name on his list is hers. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $179. And that's one I'm super excited for, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, because I really want to know what's going on with Barbara. Batman Battle for the Cowl, Arkham, number 1, written by David Heim, art by Jeremy Hahn, cover by Ledron. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $179. DCBService.com remains your pre-order source. So definitely check out DCBService.com to save and get some of those discounts. We love Love and Capes, and so should you. Check out Tom Zahler's work in this collected edition published by IDW. Love and Capes, the trade paperback, is regularly $19.99, 30% off, only $13.99 from DCBService.com. And if you liked our promo on this one, definitely go and check that one out. We'll be back in a few days with part 3, so definitely check out the website and the forum for more details on when that release is going.
Bye!